My lords, galactic exploration is perhaps the most wonderful of pastimes throughout our galaxy. It is, however, not without risk, and one of the most risky things a scientist can do is explore the tears in space that we have designated as Astral Rifts. What may be on the other side of these rifts is a complete lottery. We have found ourselves at the bottom of ocean floors, in the belly of gigantic rockworms, floating up against the tomb of what we suspect is a hunter, a mere fragment of ink on a piece of paper, and even have found ourselves in completely different timelines. I'm referencing the Baol and the Zroni here. Today I shall detail every single astral rift that we have explored. There's 30 of them, and we'll begin with the tower. Soon after our arrival through the rift, we found ourselves upon a planet. Directly in front of us was a stone pedestal upon which we landed, and it conformed perfectly to the dimensions of our rift sphere. In fact, the location is so obviously suited to our needs, the idea of it being a coincidence has been rejected out of hand. In all directions, a vast and radiant sky stretches before us. Initial scans indicated that we are sitting atop a massive tower, the bottom of which is blocked from view by swirling layers of cloud around us. At the edge of the pedestal is a solitary creature. It wears a tattered, dusty robe and is apparently waiting to greet us. We attempted communication with the creature. With no means of fully translating the creature's language, we resorted to a more direct form of communication. We intermittently flashed the lights of the rift sphere towards the creature. This has, since we first invented automobiles back in the 20th century, been a colloquial term to come hither. Within moments, the creature fell to the ground. At first we were concerned that we had harmed it, but it soon became clear that it was simply offering some sort of praise or perhaps supplication. Not long after, a cadir of similarly dressed beings approached the pedestal, each bearing a basket of what we could only assume would be gifts. We chose to invite the creatures aboard. With each step, it gained more confidence, but we could tell its vital systems were highly elevated. We wonder how long this creature had waited for this moment to take place. We were not sure how we knew it would be coming, but we were sure it was safe to bring it aboard. The creature gasped in awe at the instruments aboard our vessel. Overcome with excitement, it quickly passed out onto our deck plating. After some light rehabilitation and study of the documents it had rolled up inside of its robes, we were able to reach the conclusion that this particular creature was an influential leader among its peers. We think, with some integration, they could be a great benefit to our own society. Thus, we returned and recruited them as a scientist. Time passed, and we eventually learned how to communicate with the creature. Its name was Ro Na Kaita, and she became well acclimatized to our society. Her great enthusiasm to assist us never waned. It turns out she used to be the leader of a doomsday cult, and we effectively saved her from self-sacrifice. She served the Empire with honours for several decades. Up next for you is the Vortex. Our rift sphere emerged inside of a violent whirlwind. Our viewing windows were completely obscured by a rippling wave of an unknown gaseous fluid. We were able to take a minor sample of the atmosphere, but each analysis came back wildly different from the last. We're not sure if our instruments are in error, or if there's something inherently volatile about the material itself. Our sphere was being whipped around with such intensity, several of the crew were becoming uncomfortable. The one consistent property we have found is that it contains an abnormally large amount of astral material. Incidentally, we noticed that small changes in temperature are affecting its contents greatly. We're placing it inside of an insulated container until we can study it further. We decided to expose the sample to flame, a risky proposal. Nevertheless, the crew followed orders. Despite the objections, we exposed the sample to direct flame. We slowly introduced more and more heat to the solution until we were confident a direct flame would be the least disruptive to its unstable chemical balance, and what we discovered was revolutionary. We are certain that we can use the findings to advance our general understanding of not only ship propulsion, but energy generation in general. Furthermore, to our great surprise, we managed to breach the storm. We made it to an area of absolute calm. Our sphere is now affected by virtually no amount of gravity here, and there is zero friction. In stark contrast to what we have just experienced, we are floating inside of a complete vacuum. We have taken this opportunity to make some much needed repairs from the damage we suffered inside the storm. We are now able to take a look behind us and inspect the wall of storm at our leisure, and have been doing so for the past day. It is a mass of ever-colliding star systems, and in some cases, entire galaxies. We are certainly witnessing the mass destruction of an entire universe's worth of celestial objects. They spin, crash, and explode against one another, leaving clouds of elements of varying size behind. How we survived that disaster must be attributed to an extreme amount of luck. We're not sure how long this storm has been brewing. The existence of full-size planets indicates this is a relatively recent phenomenon, as if this was to continue for some time, there'd be nothing but dust left. Our journey into the centre of the Eye has indeed been a peaceful one, however we're worried that we might not be able to return safely. The storm outside is gaining in intensity, and our calculations suggest that the Rift sphere has a low chance of survival, even at full-speed anchor attraction. This is not our most important concern, however. We have found something at the very centre of this calmness. Two somethings, to be quite clear. First, there is the device. It is incomprehensible in nature. We're not even fully certain that we're able to observe all dimensions of the object. Many of its geometric shapes break down into fractal patterns that disappear into a single point, making it very difficult to describe the exact architecture of the thing. We do believe, however, it is a machine and not alive, and that's where the second object comes in. There is something manipulating the device. It is clearly a separate entity. It dances and flows along the surface of the machine with incredible ease. If buttons were present on the device, it would appear to be pressing them. We all agree though, there are no buttons. Massive shapes pull and push outward at this being's behest. It has not currently noticed us and seems totally enthralled in its current activities. As is standard procedure, we flashed our lights. This gained its attention. We flashed a series of light in all available spectrums. We pulsed them in a simple binary pattern to communicate some form of intent. The being ceased manipulating the device and retracted into a perfectly round sphere of complete darkness. Our first speculation is it may be imitating us. We have noticed in that time, since it had stopped pulling and pushing at the machine, the storm around us lessened in intensity. We predict it will reach a full stop in momentum in only a few days, and perhaps it's possible it will then collapse inward upon itself. But then in a flash, the creature disappeared, leaving only the device behind. The storm around us continued to lessen to the point now where it may be safely navigated, though the sheer scale of the cosmic destruction it left behind is staggering. With the entity gone, we now feel confident enough to approach the device. The material it's made of cannot be splintered or fractured with any known equipment. However, there appear to be a few external controls magnetically attached to its outer casing. Each of these spins at an extremely high velocity. One in particular was loose, and though the return conditions are likely to be cramped, we have been able to load it inside of our vessel for further study. No matter which surface this device rests upon, the apparatus will spin with great speed to the point where its centre of gravity and momentum easily keeps it upright. We can detect no interior power source and believe this may be a startling example of true perpetual motion. We are naming this device the Ever-Spinning Top. And now we come to Entangled Dark Matter. We entered through the rift and find ourselves inside an enormous mesh. Energy crackles rhythmically along its grid-like walls. A concentrated cloud of dark matter is suspended deep within this tangled web. Translucent tendrils probe outward against the energy barrier, sparkling on contact before recalling back. The ghostly particles move as if patterned. Whatever this spectral mass may be, it has not yet reacted to our presence. We attempted to examine it. Covering an enormous surface area, we found that the mesh is fully exposed to the surrounding of space. The technology used in its construction is unfamiliar, but it is reasonable to assume that it was designed to intercept and capture non-solid material. The amorphous cloud stirred slightly as we surveyed our surroundings. It's the only other presence within the mesh. As we continue our observations, a mechanism was observed extending from the matrix. It seems to be limiting the amplitude of the current flowing into the mesh. We decided to try and investigate the captive mass. As we approach the ethereal mass, we begin to feel a presence in our minds. Seemingly random bits of knowledge were dredged up, old memories stirred, and despite the invasive presence we sensed no malicious intent or discomfort. The entity in front of the ship stirred, and a message appeared in our minds. I have never encountered your kind before. What are you? We told it we were simply explorers from another world. The entity considered our response. Another message rang out. Curious species, it's fascinating to meet you. My kind makes up the building blocks of reality. We are also wanderers and explorers who take great interest in experiencing the universe. Regrettably, another lifeform saw us as a mere material deposit, a passing fuel source to be captured and harvested. I wish to inhabit the body of your lead scientist. Doing so would free me from this prison. If you allow me to possess this vessel, I will use my depth of knowledge and psychic prowess to carry out your people's will for eternity. Unfortunately, I'm not sure their mind is powerful enough to coexist with my consciousness. We will tell the people that the scientist volunteered. However, Dr. Nelson did not. They were bound to a diagnostic bench, and the transfer began. Dr. Nelson squirmed in discomfort, spasming uncontrollably as the foreign consciousness overwhelmed their mind. The ghostly entity became a churning vortex of unstable energy. Suddenly, everything went quiet, and Dr. Nelson would rise with a new demeanour. Now fully inert, the spectral mass diffused evenly throughout the mesh, and Dr. Nelson became, by far, the most knowledgeable scientist in our galaxy. Now we move on to Strange Station, also known as Through the Mirror. Beyond the rift, we discovered a structure that resembled one of our own starbases. As soon as the rift sphere approached, we were hailed in a number of languages, and on several frequencies. Surprisingly, one of the languages was our own. Our hosts were just as shocked as we were to encounter alien species speaking their own tongue, but after a brief exchange of courtesies, we learned that this sector is home to a spacefaring civilization just like our own. They call it the Human Galactic Empire, and they share many of our ideals, but where we put our people first, they embrace alien civilizations with a surprising naivety. We decided to attempt to study their people, and we spent a month in cultural exchange with the Human Galactic Empire. Their society mirrored our own until briefly before FTL technology was discovered, when they encountered an unknown alien vessel of unimaginable power. The vessel moved on without its purpose ever being discovered, but this brief visit shocked their society to the core. Seeing how helpless they would have been against this craft led to an upheaval in their ideology and a shift towards xenophilia as they saw a peaceful resolution to any further encounters. By contrast, of course, when we would first meet aliens on what would later become Deneb, it was a violent encounter, and thus that's where I believe our xenophobic tendencies were brought to the fore. It's clear to us they've made an incorrect choice here, but it does pose an interesting question. Would our society have also gone down the wrong path had the same thing happened to us? It is unfortunate for them that this event happened during the impressionable pre-FTL period of their society. Changing their foundational ethics has undoubtedly slowed the progress of their empire. Nevertheless, it seems knowledge of our presence on the station has escalated up their chain of command. An emissary from their empire has been assigned to the starbase and would like to discuss the future of our peoples. While they don't necessarily like us, they do understand us. They argue that an arrangement between our people would be beneficial for both sides, and we of course welcome friendship between our empires. They are human after all. Work is now being done to facilitate a more permanent pathway between our two universes. Although nothing is decided yet, the emissary has indicated that they would at least be interested in a trade agreement. Okay, now we move on to Tiny Planet. We have arrived in a star system with a peculiar gravitational property. Individual bodies travelling through this space have a much stronger gravitational pull relative to their size than in our dimension. Sensors detect 4 extremely small celestial bodies in this system, one of which is populated by a savage society. A continental world inhabited by a semi-aquatic amphibian species. It is wholly typical, aside from the fact the entire planet is roughly the size of our rift sphere. This extremely small intelligent species in their homeworld offers a variety of potential research opportunities. Given that the tiny planet was a similar size to our vessel, we were careful not to approach too closely, concerned we may affect it with our gravitational pull. However, we did not properly account for the trajectory of the planet's moon, and within moments a collision occurred and the moon was flung further into space. Given the effect a natural satellite can have on a planet's ecosystem, we expect some repercussions for this little species. The savage species soon noticed our presence. Given the relative size of our vessel, we must be dominating the view from most of their horizon. According to localized radio signals, they've also noticed that their moon's orbit has shifted outward, causing somewhat of a panic. Dangerous tidal surges have resulted in a significant loss of life among their savage species. We can of course attempt contact or observe passively, but we chose to try and establish contact. After a stunted conversation with the savage species, we know that their leadership is equally terrified and astounded by our presence, but it would appear that we're not welcome. Perhaps we should do something to justify their fear. Perhaps not. We will attempt to fix the moon's orbit. After many calculations, simulations and trials, we have managed to delicately nudge the small moon back to its original orbit. This will not undo the damage and loss of life that the tidal shifts have already caused, but we have done what we can. Communication with the tiny savages are back open, and they do seem grateful for our efforts. Indeed, they are now holding celebrations in our honour. Okay, now we move on to the Lattice. We have entered a space of confusing visual spectacles, geometric patterns and shifting colours. The surroundings do not appear dangerous, but they are as disorientating as an optical illusion. Attempts to analyse the material that makes up the universe is baffling. No matter how intensely the samples are magnified, we are confronted by the same repeating patterns. It is as if they condense towards infinity. Clearly, there are physical principles operating inside of the rift that we don't understand, but we will attempt to explore further. We've discovered that space definitely works differently here. The movements of our ship do not correspond to expected results. Propelling forward, we go left. If we increase our thrust, we slow down. A breakthrough was made when one of our scientists theorized that this universe allows access to more than standard 3 spatial dimensions. Perhaps by examining our surroundings through this lens, we can begin to find meaning in the patterns. By extrapolating the patterns of our surroundings in the 4 spatial dimensions, we've succeeded in creating a usable map. This has revealed the existence of a central chamber within these repeated patterns. While from the perspective of 4 dimensions, our travel to the middle of the rift was a straight line, our own experience was a twisting trajectory through an incomprehensible labyrinth. Sharp turns and the occasional backtrack were required to traverse the maze, but eventually we reached our goal. This new space is vast. It is far too large to be logically contained within the chamber, and must be the result of even more folded dimensions. At its very centre, we discovered a familiar device. Written in our own language, it was a set of instructions on how to proceed further. Most bizarrely, it was signed by none other than Dr. Nelson. This was a message from us in the future. Following the instructions laid out before us, we navigated easily through an unknown amount of superspatial dimensions. At various points we witnessed ourselves crossing from another course. Some of our copies appeared to be in distress, the wear and corrosion of their sphere indicating they had been lost in space for far too long. Luckily, we have avoided direct encounters thus far. We have left our own instructions behind us to prevent such a dangerous temporal similarity from occurring. Finally, we believe we've reached the centre of this maze, and we are in a space of so many unknown dimensions that our senses can only perceive it as a wild kaleidoscope of colour and motion. At its very core, 3 transparent globes are floating, each containing an infinitely repeating pattern in one axial direction. We suspect there must be a globe for each dimension contained within the universe, but we can only interact with our perceivable 3. There are no further instructions to be found, and this lack of messages could indicate that interacting with the globes could have dire consequences. Nevertheless, we've come this far, so we attempted to retrieve the globes. As we returned back through the rift, 2 other spheres came with us, presumably crewed by other versions of ourselves. We 3 fused, or were reduced perhaps, into one being at its threshold. Strangely, the 3 orbs that we recovered did not converge in the same manner. 9 temporal versions of the same objects now exist in one space. When placed in individual containers, they naturally bend themselves into an extra dimension and increase the effective size of their surrounding space. We're not sure yet on the limits of the expansion, but we theorise that the devices could be of great use in densely populated areas. We effectively now have 9 fractal seeds. Moving on now to Windswept Planet. We arrived on a planet battered by fierce high-velocity winds. The surface is near bare, with its cliffs and boulders weathered smooth by the elements. The skies above are dark with thunderous clouds and plumes of bright gas, which erupt violently as lightning strikes the ground all around us. We should seek shelter from the gathering storm. Meteorological sensors indicate gentler air currents in the higher atmosphere, where we could avoid the dangerous electrical discharges from the storm. Alternatively, there was a large cavern nearby that may provide refuge. We attempted to rise above the storm. Breaking through the cloud layer, we observed a piercing blue sky. Wind continued to whip against our hull, gaining strength with every gust. More than just a peculiar weather pattern, these currents acted with unnatural precision. What's more, we detected a hormone-like compound in the swirling air. Subsequent analysis has revealed it's very similar to a biological response from a plant under attack. Indeed, this sample confirmed the presence of a microorganism inside the wind. As an experiment, we synthesized a similar hormone and released it back into the atmosphere. Suddenly, the brutal winds transformed into a much gentler current. Further analysis of the sample indicated that in large enough clusters, these microorganisms comprise a single mind. Working together, they're able to generate living gusts of wind. Some of these currents carry hair-like strands of genetic material. Caught in the same current, we were pushed back towards the surface where the storm had now subsided. As we returned to the surface, we noticed it was covered with a thick layer of yellow cloud. While the landscape was level and mostly bare, every single cavity and crevice harboured clusters of this spore-spewing fungi. The air currents we followed here flowed over the landscape, releasing bundles of hairy airborne spawn. These floated down towards the surface, where most were quickly disintegrated by the blanket of fungal spores. What little spawn survived attached itself to the bare terrain and formed a conical polyp, providing a protected environment for the wind-borne microorganisms to safely mature. Clearly, these fungal spores are preventing the wind creatures from reproducing. In turn, the wind creatures have leveled the planet's surface, forcing the fungus to retreat to the most sheltered environments. We are going to attempt to find a way to remove the fungus. We provided the wind creatures with a large quantity of alloy metal filings. These abrasives were light enough to be swept along the individual currents, but strong enough to wear away most minerals over a short time. A group of air currents quickly used these filings to shred a cluster of yellow fungus, sheltering inside a nearby crevasse. The wing creatures went on to distribute the metal filings more broadly among themselves. Sharp winds begin to strike the planet's surface, targeting the spore-spewing fungus in a coordinated bombardment. In what perhaps was a gesture of gratitude, a gentle breeze delivered us a bundle of its hairy floating spawn. With these, we can foster our own living wind, bringing high-velocity air currents to a select group of colonies. Moving on to hatching ground. We find ourselves on a planet with what we initially thought were large rocks, but they're actually giant eggs. It appears the planet is a giant hatchery. Judging by their twitching, the eggs will soon hatch, and this place will be a host to a multitude of alien young. We have not detected any creature that could have laid the eggs, with each egg roughly the size of our own vessel. It does not seem likely that we would miss a full-grown adult. It also appears that the planet does not have the proper ecosystem to support such a large population. Our theories are that this species conducts an interstellar migration, or their life cycle ends swiftly after they lay their eggs, in order to give the environment time to recover. We waited and watched. The eggs started to hatch. Soon the landscape was overrun with massive winged animals that emerged from these shells. Within minutes they gained the ability to fly. The skies were now filled with these soaring creatures. Oddly, we have yet to witness them feed on any other organism. Their instinctive behaviour of flying high into the atmosphere suggests that they may be gaining energy from the planet's star. The movement of the creature's fin-like wings is similar to the way that one would manoeuvre a sail, spread to maximise exposure to stellar radiation in order to direct their travel. There is still much that we do not understand about these creatures. Studying them more closely would give us a better understanding of their physiology. That said, given our lack of knowledge, perhaps observing them from a distance may be safer. We decided to approach. The creatures showed no fear as we moved towards them, probably due to a lack of predators within their isolated habitat. We were able to easily take samples from the beings and the remains of their eggs as they flew curiously around us. Their skin formed a natural solar panel that allowed them to gain all necessary sustenance from their star. It is also highly resistant to pressure, that it would likely comfortably withstand the vacuum of space for long periods of time. It is highly likely these creatures evolved to be capable of spaceflight. Our research was interrupted suddenly by the disturbance in the fabric of space. A being larger than a battleship phased into existence. It was immediately surrounded by darting and seemingly playful hatchlings. Given the larger creature's physiologically similarity, it's reasonable to suggest this is a mature version of its species. Initially wary of our presence, it was reassured by the friendliness of the young who continued to frolic around our vessel without care. The creature lingered for a few hours longer before a new rift in space appeared in the outer atmosphere. Together with its charges, the adult guided the young inside the rift, and they passed into another dimension. The wake of their passage left behind waves of spatial disruption, resulting in a large concentration of astral thread. And now we move on to dimensional dump. We found ourselves surrounded by rubbish. From time to time we have witnessed new tears open up around us and dump even more rubbish into this swirling heap. Based on the nature of the debris, this space is being treated as a junkyard by a starfaring civilization. Parts and pieces of unknown machines are littered amongst everyday disposables of alien households. Generally these items are of no greater value than scrap, however our sensors have picked up signs of alien life. Inside a spacesuit, the unconscious body of an unknown organism lies dormant. It's not clear how long they have been floating there. We will attempt to bring it aboard. It appears taking the alien was a mistake. After restoring its core temperature and tending to its vitals, the alien revived, quickly, confused and alarmed. It grabbed a member of our team and is currently holding them hostage with a weapon drawn from their boot. They speak a language that we do not understand and routinely point to the sphere's controls, emphatically repeating the same phrase. We attempted to demonstrate peaceful intentions and lay down our weapons. The alien released its grip on the hostage and dropped their weapon in return. It appeared to be in a highly emotional state, somewhat expected, given the circumstances. Given some time to calm down, it became receptive to our communications, and we began the process of finding a way to hold a proper conversation. After some time, we established the alien's name was Vimas Fen. On a routine haul to dump a load of trash into this dimension, he was inadvertently sent along for the ride. A technical issue with the dimensional drive aboard his ship, which required manual repair, and he was the only one with the technical skill to fix it. In doing so, he accidentally slipped into a space-time compressor and became lost. The life support systems of his suit kept him alive in hibernation for over 2 centuries. We will take him home with us and interrogate him some more. And now on to Whiteout. Dr. Banks reports on this exploration. Outside the sphere, there was nothing but white. Initial readings indicate that an equal amount of every colour on the spectrum was bombarding us from every direction at once. We have no way to determine our bearings. Alternators, depth gauges and compasses are completely inoperable or clearly in error. Visually, there is absolutely no deviation from the empty whiteness surrounding us. Perhaps if we travel far enough, we could escape disruption. Alternatively, we could explore the area in more detail with the help of a drone. I felt the second option was better, and thus I ordered a drone to be released. There was no point in pushing forward without a heading. For now at least. The drone gave us a different perspective on our situation. After orbiting our vessel in concentric circles, we discovered a curved black wall not far from our location. The readings were somewhat puzzling, however, as the height of the wall always returned an equal distance to the exact altitude of the drone. Observing this phenomenon has furthered our understanding of non-standard spatial dimensions, but we remain without bearing or heading, and thus our scans continue. Several hours have now passed, and we have a new development. A new series of walls has appeared directly in front of us, and we are maintaining a safe distance, lest one of these objects materialized straight through the vessel. Perhaps by sampling the material, we may further understand the current situation. Alternatively, we could take some time to map out the shapes of the walls and detect if there was any kind of pattern. Given that scanning had so far proved fruitless, I ordered a sample be collected. Thus, we extended our retrieval arm and gathered a sample of the dark material from the wall. we were quite surprised to find that the sample maintained an infinite height as we pulled it free to analyse it. Its properties have much in common with ink or paint, although some of the components of the pigment are of an unknown type. Some of the binding agents used in the ink are actually a unique form of dissolved crystal. As an experiment, we drew a line using a small amount of the sample, and we waited. A short time later, a nearly identical mark appeared parallel to it. We repeated the action several times, each with a different amount of material, iterating through several different designs. Each time the mark was reproduced exactly the same, and in the same orientation. Given the results, there is reason to believe that some sort of entity is making use of the material in an attempt to communicate with us. Accordingly, we have begun writing some basic phrases in binary using small dots and dashes. These were copied exactly, but there was also something new. Next to each of our words appeared a pattern. Each time we drew the same phrase, the same pattern appeared, and we wondered, was this a translation? Many weeks have now passed, and we remain in the rift. Over that time, we have learned to communicate in a stunted fashion with the entity who we have nicknamed the Writer. The exchange has been difficult, but the Writer's tone evokes a curiosity and a surprise. So as not to clutter our immediate area, it has become routine that each of the symbols painted by the Writer are erased after each dialogue. Our conversation with the Writer continued for some time until a final word appeared, which read simply as gift. Soon after, a golden sphere appeared next to our vessel. The object behaved very differently to the previous symbols, and we were able to bring it aboard. This was the last communication that we received from the entity. The sphere's component materials contained rich amounts of data that will take our science teams years to fully understand, but a cursory analysis suggests that this will push forward our physics research by at least a decade. Next up, we have Lone Object. There are no stars here, no planetary bodies, only a diffusion of light from a mysterious origin that reveals a massive object looming before us. It's roughly rectangular in shape and appears to be completely inert. We have detected no propulsion systems or power signatures of any kind. It appears to be comparable in size to a small starbase, and from our scans appears dead. But for how long has it been floating in this secluded pocket dimension? We have no idea. And furthermore, where did it come from? Our scans have identified innumerable decorative glyphs and symbols that have been intricately carved into its surface. We have ruled out any possibility of this being a natural phenomenon. It is indeed a floating mystery. My team and I will attempt to translate the glyphs. Several hours have passed. My team and I, with the help of our VIR, have made progress on the translations. The glyphs that cover this tremendous object are mostly pictorial representations. Based on the carbon dating, we have determined that some of the earliest carvings were made several millennia before the most recent. The glyphs are illustrated in such detail that we were soon able to develop a rough translation. We believe that the object is in fact a massive burial chamber. Whoever or whatever is entombed inside appear to have once ruled an entire galaxy. Some of the earliest pictographs reveal the origin of this powerful being. If our translations are correct, this being was raised by a spaceborne race of leviathans. And the two species developed a unique symbiosis, forming a potent psychic bond. They conquered countless systems together. The other symbols refer to a curse, which may be enacted upon us should we attempt to open the object or even approach it too closely. I'm attempting a deep scan of the entire perimeter to see if we can uncover anything else about this object. Our deep scans had soon finished, and we have now completed a full orbit around the object. We have discovered that it is in fact composed of two halves welded shut. The seal is heavily corroded in some locations, which is unexpected given the emptiness of the surrounding atmosphere. This indicates that the source of the corrosion must be coming from inside the object itself. Disturbingly, the corrosion is so severe in some places that cracks have started to appear. Some are large enough for one of our drones to enter, and as such, we will send a drone through the crack to investigate further. Our drone is now transmitting a signal from inside the object. Unfortunately, most of the compartments within are obscured by a thick cloud of carbon dust and have proven most difficult to maneuver around. Initial analysis has revealed a high amount of astral fabric interwoven within the carbon particles. We think it will be possible to harvest this material, should we take the time to do so. There are visible, deeper cracks within the structure, and we can see the signs of an inner chamber. Exploring this would require a method of more destructive exploration, and as such, we arm some explosives. Our controlled explosion opened the way to a previously undetected cavity hidden behind the seal. Unfortunately, the space was clearly designed as a counter-intrusion. It was filled to the brim with hostile entities. They immediately began to spill out and attack us. We enacted an emergency evacuation protocol and exited the rift. However, a number of these guardians came through the rift with us and are attacking our starbase. They appear roughly crystalline in nature, almost like a Tianki, but made out of crystals. They were quickly dispatched and the rift has been sealed. Whatever creature was entombed within that lone object, we will sadly not get the opportunity to study it. Next, on to Dimensional Conflict and Dr. Petrie reports. This rift contains the aftermath of a titanic struggle. All that was left is the wreckage of a military fleet and the corpse of a monstrous creature, easily 10 times as large as the largest battleship from tip to tail. In contrast to the mangled hulls of the warships, the carcass is in remarkably good shape. Whatever weapons these ships were using, they appear to be mostly ineffective. The creature is hardly damaged, but we have not yet determined what caused it to die. It does appear incredibly unlikely, however, it was the result of this battle. We believe that this creature had remarkable durability. We've been analysing its molecular composition, and we think it will help strengthen the hull of our own fleet. But on the other hand, we should attempt to study the creature's internal organs and figure out how it died, which may indicate what happened here. As such, we took the ship through its gaping maw. We are now deep inside the derelict carcass. While we were unable to penetrate the remarkable armour of the creature, we did succeed in opening its mouth with the aid of a large quantity of explosive, and a small team ventured through the mouth of the beast with the hope to gain a better understanding of its internal organs, and hopefully come back with some samples of its tissues. Its interior was fascinating. Countless rows of sharp teeth indicated that this was clearly a predatory organism. A very effective digestive system occupied the majority of its bulk and revealed that the creature was in the habit of consuming a wide variety of material. Furthermore, we were able to estimate the time and cause of death. Despite the creature's omnivorous habits, there were clear signs of dehydration. We assume that this indicates that the creature was not native to this dimension and found nothing here to drink. Based on carbon dating, the organism passed away approximately 50,000 years ago. I've left a small team researching the internals of the creature, but I've moved on to examining the remains of the warships within the rift. They have remarkably smooth surfaces, and they bear similarities to the design of our own rift spheres. It seems that these vessels were designed to freely enter and exit rifts without the need for an anchor extraction cable. While our engineers worked on understanding this technology, the rest of the team has discovered a large dodecahedron nestled in the interior of the largest wrecked battleship. Without further testing, it's impossible to speculate on its purpose, but the way it has been carefully stored and protected indicates that it is clearly regarded as vital. Given that this relic was obviously something of great importance, our team brought the dodecahedron aboard the rift sphere for further examination, and we found trace amounts of astral thread. During experimentation, we fed some of these threads into the dodecahedron, which caused the object to begin to vibrate at a frequency so high that it soon began to resemble a sphere. While the device was active, the rift that we entered through was sealed, but as soon as the device was switched off, the rift reappeared. Based on this experiment, we believed that they were faced with a foe that they could not destroy. An ancient empire used this technology in a desperate attempt to lock this creature away, sacrificing their own battle fleet in the process. and this remarkable device could prove a significant boon for us. We have named this device the Daedalus Seal, and we believe that we can use it not only to lock Astral Rifts, but also all wormholes and L-gates for a significant period of time, perhaps even indefinitely. Well, my lords, you have just heard 2 reports from 2 different Astral Rifts. I believe the sites are linked, not only to themselves, but perhaps to the elusive beings that we call the Hunters. The first rift describes a colossal tombstone, holding within it some sort of dead, incredibly powerful galactic ruler, who according to the scripture, dominated a galaxy with the help of a Leviathan-sized creature. We assume something similar to space dragons, or perhaps voidspawn. The second rift appears to have one such specimen within it, surrounded by the mass grave of battleships, seemingly having been destroyed by the creature, at little to no damage itself. I suspect that the Psionic Empire, who had individuals ruling entire galaxies, likely joined forces with exactly the sort of dead Leviathan that we found in the second rift. These entities were both clearly powerful in their own right. Together they would be fearsome indeed, and a perfect match to the brief description that we have of the Hunters. Now we have Psionic Stranger. If you can believe it, Dr. Asimov, during routine exploration of an astral rift in the Nimbus system, encountered what we believe to be a Zroni individual, on the cusp of an extremely important decision. A special thank you to Chairman Viz, who is assisting the Commonwealth greatly in this report. I shall begin with a brief recap of who the Zroni were. As stated, they were incredibly powerful psionics, and they quickly learned of the Shroud and the entities that dwelled within. We know that the Zroni were able to psionically enter the Shroud dimension, and acquired the ability to manipulate its essence to their whim. They created a utopia unlike anything that had ever been seen, or would likely ever be seen again. Imagine for a moment the power to create any thought as reality in a heartbeat. It is no wonder that they were infatuated by this power. Furthermore, the Zroni quickly discovered that the Shroud touches all physical space simultaneously. They had the ability to enter at one physical point and psionically jump to any other part of the known galaxy. It is perhaps because of this power we found very little evidence of expansion in the physical realm. They only occupied a handful of planets, seemingly content to explore the psionic realm instead. The Shroud, it seems, enveloped their entire culture, science, entertainment, and all walks of life were ultimately pushed aside in order to fuel the need to enter the Shroud. As I mentioned earlier, the Zroni were aware that other entities lived within the Shroud. Some Zroni began to speculate that these entities were having a subtle impact on their culture. This group believed that these entities were powerful manipulators and were trying to subvert the Zroni to their will. We don't know exactly when, but at some point the Zroni learned that their new powers came at a great cost. They learned that the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy, the same one that we see today, was growing. And it soon became clear that this was fueling their ability to manipulate the Shroud. With every change the Zroni made in the Shroud, the black hole grew larger, consuming the mass of the physical galaxy and siphoning the energy back into the Shroud. This discovery shaped the way the Zroni civilization would come to an end. Debate engulfed their civilization, and 2 sides formed, the Divine and the Saviors. Argument led to division, and division eventually turned into a fully fledged civil war. The Divine felt that the fate of the physical galaxy was no concern of theirs. Of course, they would continue to live as gods within the Shroud, irrespective of what happened to the rest of the galaxy. The Saviors, however, were aghast at this. They had no wish to live in a manner that they viewed as parasites, preying on other races. Siphoning energy from the physical world to fuel their base desires was an abhorrent thought. Besides, even without their ability to enter and manipulate the Shroud, their psionics still guaranteed them a near utopian existence. Most of the records available to us at this point focus only on the Civil War. The majority of the Zroni population sided with the Saviors. While this gave them a significant advantage, the Divine were unshackled and able to use the full might of the Shroud, whereas the Saviors were limited to the power that they could draw from within their own bodies. In any other war, this would likely have been enough, but the power of the Shroud fueling the Divine was great, and the Divine was sure to win this war. That is until a discovery was made by a savior scientist. The records are not clear with a name, but merely call him a hero. He theorized that he could turn his psionic power upon himself, consuming himself in a chain reaction. This hero put his theory into action, and all that remained was a dusty residue. That residue is what we now know to be Zroni. This dust was essentially the sum of his total psionic potential, and could be used by another psionic to extend their abilities far beyond what they could accomplish alone. This great sacrifice turned the tide of the war. The Divine began to lose, and became increasingly desperate. In their desperation, they began to spawn ever-increasing horrors, shaping the Shroud into beings beyond all measure of rage and madness. The war, it seems, was not over, and would not end with victory for either side. The Divine had fallen beyond all measure of reason. According to the reports, a pact was made with one of the entities occupying the Shroud, a pact named the End of the Cycle. The Divine strategy would be to expend untold energy in order to grow the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy exponentially, effectively wiping out the physical galaxy and the saviors with it. Fortunately for us, this did not happen. The saviors en masse made their way to their capital world of Zroni, a world that still exists today, however cleaved in two by psionic energy. It is here that the saviors made the ultimate sacrifice to stop the Divine's madness. Every savior except one consumed themselves, channeling the power of their entire species into one lone Zroni. The lone Zroni used this immense power to end the existence of the Divine, killing himself in the process. In a snap of a finger, the Zroni were completely annihilated and turned to dust, ending the threat of the Divine for good. Or, so we thought. Dr. Asimov now reports on the exploration of the rift in the Nimbus system. We arrived in the atmosphere of a frozen, mountainous Arctic world. Almost immediately, we were shaken by a powerful mental communication. A voice spoke directly into our minds. It said, "Greetings. You have travelled far. From the depths of my meditations, I sensed your journey across the Astral Planes. Come, let us meet. Perhaps your arrival is the breakthrough I have been waiting for." A vision of an isolated mountain cave was revealed to us. To detect our presence so soon, and to broadcast a message from such a distance, implies this mysterious stranger must possess incredible psionic powers. We traced the vision to a point on one of the planet's highest mountains. The planet appeared mostly deserted, but we did see some birds that looked an awfully lot like overgrown pigeons flying in the distance. Eventually, we came across a masked figure, sat meditating in an isolated cave. Grey-skinned and humanoid, she was enveloped in a violet aura of gently pulsating energy. Glowing horns sprouted from the alien's head, with similar, though stunted spurs extending from her back. The species was not from our galaxy. They were clearly highly attuned to the psionic wavelengths. I thought she might be a Zroni. We again heard the alien in our minds. "Thank you for accepting my invitation. We have much to discuss. I am known as a far seer. I've been meditating here on this Arctic world for years, awaiting a revelation. It is not by chance alone that you have appeared here." The Farseer continued, "I have been channeling my efforts to enter a spiritual dimension. Your people refer to this place as the Shroud. Recently, I have felt a strange call that I believe has come deep from within the Shroud. And now, I stand upon the threshold of this mysterious world for the first time." She sighed. "My people have entrusted me with this responsibility. Entering the Shroud may indeed grant us great power, but I am full of doubt. The closer I come, the more the Shroud pulls at me. There are whispers in the dark corner of my mind. Can such a power truly be controlled? And now, at the moment of choice, you appear. This cannot be mere coincidence." We chose to offer our perspective on the matter. we explained that we believe the goal of a society is to grow and prosper according to its principles. Embodying one's values on the galactic stage is the true test of any civilization. If entering the Shroud was truly the will of her people, then she had a duty to proceed. The Farseer again responded, "I understand this, but my people's will is divided. Travellers from afar, what guidance can you offer? The burden of decision is too much to bear on my own." We were left with a choice. Do we encourage the Farseer, who we believe was a Zroni, to enter the Shroud, knowing her potential fate? Or do we discourage her and suggest she stay limited to the physical universe? Dr. Asimov ultimately decided to encourage the Farseer to venture into the Shroud and attempt ascension to a higher existence. The Farseer accepted our advice as prophecy and gave her thanks. She offered us a small yet oddly heavy data crystal and bade us to leave her realm. Analysis of the crystal revealed a subtly shifting matrix. It is a vast archive stored as psionic energy, and the information within will provide deep insights into psionic theory. We wonder if we will ever see her again, if not just to experience her presence touch our minds one last time. Sadly, we did not hear from her again, but after several years had passed, we detected a perfectly smooth capsule emerging from the rift that we had originally explored in the Nimbus system. The capsule contained within a simple message, and it said, "Thank you, Dr. Asimov of the Commonwealth, for your fated visit. The Zroni people have now not only breached the Shroud, but our population has begun to migrate into it permanently. The Shroud provides us with incredible power and harmony. We are experiencing a societal utopia the likes of which we could never have imagined, and we wish to share some of our material riches with you before we depart the physical world entirely." The crystal then opened up, and the insights contained within will surely drastically increase our research speed on particle physics. Furthermore, we believe that these insights will help safeguard us from the negative effects of space storms, as well as provide increases in energy and rare crystal production. And next up we have the Garden. Having previously explored another Astral Rift, Dr. Watney was chosen to conduct this exploration. Unfortunately for us, the planet on the other side was occupied by lush, green plantoid life, Dr. Watney's speciality. The Doctor reports the following. "We arrived in a large, expansive chamber covered from floor to ceiling with thick, heavily thorned green plant life. Vines stretched across the cavern. Barbed thorns bite outward from nearly every bend and twist in their coils, and we quickly became aware that these organisms have some sort of intelligence about them, or at least a defensive instinct. We noted an abnormally high oxygen content in the atmosphere and speculated that burning away this plant life would prove quite an easy task. On the other hand, this would certainly destroy any samples that we would otherwise be able to collect, and we've observed a large quantity of hairy fruit hanging from the stalks that could provide a generous amount of insight into this planet's flora. As such, we decided to attempt to extract the fruit. As we weaved our way through the vines, we were able to shear some of the fruit from their stems using our sample collection tools. Each time we removed one, the rest of the plant fell limply to the side. Eventually, we gathered enough of the fruit that the surrounding vines were all diminished sufficiently enough to establish a wide area of safety. The fruit itself had an appearance quite similar to a Terran pineapple. However, unlike the pineapple, it was a vibrant shade of iridescent blue, with hues that shifted and shimmered as it caught the light. Its outer skin was smooth and slightly translucent, giving it an ethereal quality. The fruit had a delicate crystal-like formation that emitted a soft, low-level glow. Considering that we were in a subterranean cavern, perhaps this luminescence served as a source of light for whoever or whatever cultivated these plants. Upon closer inspection, the fruit of the plants are actually more of a symbiotic fungal growth that seems present throughout the entire root system. We've taken several samples aboard the Rift Sphere for further study. Once peeled, the fruit around it forms a seamless, gelatinous mass with a subtle, sweet fragrance that permeates the air around it. It was deemed safe to consume, and I can report the taste is a delightful combination of several exotic flavours. blending notes of citrus, melon, and a hint of intergalactic spice. Nevertheless, this plant has more value than a simple intergalactic delicacy. We speculate that the fungus serves as a kind of neural cluster for the vines that they are bonded to. Having dealt with the immediate danger, we have begun to explore our surroundings more thoroughly. It would appear that we were correct with our initial assessment. We were deep within a series of caverns. Scouting our way through a nearby tunnel led us into a more expansive hollow. Systems of root-like clusters dangle from the ceiling and drip with luminous fluids onto the foliage below, which then becomes absorbed by even more vegetation. The caverns are their own thriving ecosystem, and we believe that to develop such an established environment must have taken several millennia. As we explore deeper, the tendrils became more and more densely packed. Pushing forward will prove difficult. A member of the team again suggested that we simply burn it all, appearing to me at least slightly maniacal. It was obvious to me that we had to continue study of this place, and as such I ordered that we press on. Shortly after, our scanners detected something lurking amongst the leaves and foliage. We attempted to hide ourselves, to give us any advantage should whatever was coming prove hostile. Eventually, a strange creature emerged from the foliage. We spotted it crawling along the thorns with delicate precision. It had hundreds of limbs, and it appeared to be most similar to that of a large centipede, displaying incredible agility for such a large creature. It has mandibles that look like they could snap a human clean in two. A soft, shrill sound shot forth from several of its membranes, coating the segments of its body as it tended to the fruit it found in every plant. It appeared to be cultivating them. Whatever it was doing to the fruit, it was doing with great care. We have been observing the creature now for some time. Fortunately, we remain undetected, and it's not clear to me what would happen if this creature found us. I think it has some level of intelligence, but whether it's capable of reason and a nice chat remains to be seen. Again, several members of my crew now urge me to unpack the Promethean flamers and burn the alien foliage with the creature along with it. However, as we were not in any immediate danger, I continue to hold off. But should we be attacked, it's certainly an option. For now, I believe further study could lead to valuable research opportunities, and as such, we continue our observations. We continue to stealthily observe the creature as it goes about its duties in the secluded garden. However, it is uncertain how long we can remain here, undetected. Each segment of the creature contains a pair of antennae. These appear to assist in detecting and removing pests from the tiny hairs of fruit it cultivates. Our observations have proved useful, however, and we have gained a significant amount of society research from it, improving our understanding of what alien biological organisms are capable of. Furthermore, we've noticed an organic mass resembling the fruit clutched tightly to the creature's chest. It's held in its massive pair of forelimbs. Several times we have observed its mandibles dig into the object and graft small parts of it onto the nearby vegetation. It is apparent that this animal is propagating these plants artificially, and this explains the lack of pollinators or any other identifiable methods of reproduction. We continue our observations. We watched the creature dig a small burrow into the soil. It placed the object it was holding up to its chest in the hole and then skittered away, but not before its hundreds of legs buried the object in a shallow lump of soil. After making sure the creature was well out of sight and would not be returning soon, we attempted to recover the object. It did not take much effort to dig up the specimen from where it was buried, and we brought it back to the ship. Our brief experiments have shown us that wherever this seedling is placed, the material immediately begins sending out microscopic tendrils to scout new areas to settle and flourish at the nearest detection of moisture. The tendrils congregate, thrive, and then separate into a new life form, leaving the original seed or root to further propagate. It is a plantoid life form, and shockingly, the plant exhibits unique signs of intelligence, even as a young sproutling. We suspect that it could be raised as a valuable asset to our empire. The root, which we have named the Infinity Root, will allow us to either generate vast amounts of plantoids fit for consumption, thus increasing food production by approximately 20% across the empire, Or we could use the device to attempt to cultivate new plantoid life forms, fit for leader level positions, a truly wonderful find. Next up, we have the fluid. Our rift sphere has arrived submerged inside of a viscous reddish fluid. All around us drift large, disc-shaped blobs of more solid matter, but we have thus far avoided collision with them. A solid wall of semi-gelatinous material surrounds us on all sides, but we glide along easily enough. The rhythmic pulsing that we sense from within the rift is in sync with the harmonic frequency of the liquid around us. Every 3 seconds we are pushed forward with a rush of pressure driving us deeper into the fluid. Resisting the flow is taxing our engines. Clearly, given our circumstance, this is a fantastic opportunity to collect some samples. The appropriate apparatus could impede our navigation in the twisting tunnels, but nevertheless I ordered it so. After all, we need to understand what we are surrounded by. The sample collection apparatus has been trailing the vessel for several hours, but unfortunately we have now come to an abrupt halt. It seems that the sample apparatus has become lodged in a narrowing of the tunnel system. We attempted to free ourselves with intermittent bursts of propulsion, but the strength of the current has prevented us from making any meaningful progress. The safest option may be to simply cut the sample apparatus free and continue forward. However, it may be possible to preserve the sample by supplementing our engines with a charge of exotic gases. Given that we still don't understand what we are flying through, or rather, swimming through, gaining the samples will be valuable. Thus, I ordered that we supplement our propulsion with a charge of exotic gas, and I'm pleased to report that this was successful. We were able to rip the apparatus free from the tunnel wall, and we have since been able to recover the valuable samples. The initial study on them shall begin, but I suspect they might be beyond the equipment we have on board. Several days have now passed with little incident. The laminar flow along the tunnel walls has kept us well centered in our journey. The disc-shaped foreign bodies surrounding us are also caught within its flow. They gently drift and tumble past the sphere. We have witnessed no evidence of sentient life. In fact, our strongest supposition at this point is that we are inside of some unknown, supermassive organism. If our presence has been noticed by any natural defenses, we are yet to witness them. We now find ourselves in an enormous chamber. The walls of this chamber are lined with veiny protrusions. The chamber walls regularly expand and contract, forcing millions of litres of fluid through a single exit. As we hold our position, we discover a second entryway into the chamber. Trace fluids of crystalline matter are suspended within the fluid coming from the tunnel. The pressure of its flow is low enough that with some skillful navigating, this orifice can be explored, and as such, I ordered us in. On the far side of the orifice, we entered yet another cavity. This chamber dwarfed any other that we had seen thus far. Here, there were thin and delicately branching tendrils stretching out in every direction. They are also intricately woven together that it became difficult to proceed. The fluid in this environment is saturated with gases that have been easy for us to collect. Fighting through the current, we were able to squeeze into another offshoot from the previous chamber, and this time we emerged into a cavern of quivering crystals. The walls around us filtered fluid from every direction, causing a crystalline residue to be left behind. Suddenly, an amorphous blob the size of a starship was observed several hundred meters away. We attempted to view it from a distance, yet we somehow managed to draw its attention. It quickly moved towards us, and despite it not having any sort of mouth, our rift sphere was quickly absorbed through the entity's membrane. Its interior is composed mostly of a corrosive enzyme, and our hull is being digested as I speak. Our tactical officer recommended an immediate evacuation, but our biologists theorized that the enzymes could be neutralized by combining exotic gases and the fluid that we have at our disposal. I agreed with the biologist's assessment. This entire situation feels like we're inside a creature, and this single-celled organism could simply be some sort of defense. I ordered a release of the exotic gas in an attempt to neutralize the beast. And, while significant in size, the creature actually turned out to be remarkably primitive in its biology. Very soon after releasing our unique concoction of gases, its external membrane dissolved. No longer able to maintain cellular integrity, its internals were carried away into the surrounding currents until only the massive nucleus core remained. I ordered the collection of the object, and am pleased to report that it was successfully recovered. Remarkably, it does not appear to be unlike the nucleus of many single-celled organisms from our own dimension. Our speculation is that this creature was some sort of antibody or immune cell in the colossal network of tubes and fluid, and it identified us as a foreign threat, and thus attacked us. Perhaps we are literally inside some massive creature, and clearly our assumptions about the size of single-celled organisms needs to be readjusted. However, our vessel has been damaged by the encounter, and given that we have the fluid from the sample collector, and now this beast's core, I've pulled the anchor cable, and we will return back to normal space with our prizes. Our biologists aboard are eager to investigate what secrets they may contain. It is here, sadly, I must report my crew and I's failings. Despite our initial extraction with no fatalities, and our finding of a potential relic, this did not end well for us. Upon return to normal space, I set course for our science nexus in the Alpha Centauri system. This voyage would have taken us several months, so of course I allowed our science team aboard to begin research into what we had brought back with us. The nucleus was subjected to a series of rigorous tests. Initial analysis confirmed that it bore remarkable resemblance to the nuclei of single-celled organisms familiar to our own dimension, just like we thought, yet this one had a far more complex structure. It exhibited unique properties such as the ability to adapt and restructure its internal composition when exposed to different stimuli. We speculated that this was the reason why it had survived in the hostile environment of the Rift for so long. However, these properties soon presented us with unexpected challenges. As our scientists attempted to probe deeper into the nucleus's genetic material, it responded in ways that we did not anticipate. We were subjecting it to a high-frequency energy pulse, intended to isolate and examine the core components. At this, the nucleus began to exhibit signs of autonomous behavior. It started to emit a faint, yet quite perceivable glow, and its internal structure began to shift and morph. At first, the changes were subtle. The liquid surrounding the nucleus, within the containment chamber, began to ripple and pulse in response to the nucleus's activity. The shifts seemed to correspond with the rhythmic pulsations that we had experienced from within the rift. Our biologists were fascinated by the development, mistaking it for a positive sign of a potential breakthrough in understanding the nucleus's functions. But as the hours passed, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The nucleus seemed to synchronize itself with the surrounding fluid and took control of its surroundings. Somehow, it enacted the surrounding liquid to crack the containment glass housing it, and in a matter of seconds, the containment chamber was breached as the liquid surged forth, cascading into the lab. To our horror, those scientists in close proximity to the spreading liquid found themselves unable to escape its reach. As the fluid engulfed them, they began to undergo a grotesque transformation. Their bodies were dissolved into the very substance that they had been studying, their consciousness somehow preserved within the vicious mass. The fluid, still appearingly controlled by the nucleus and infused with some sort of sentience, surged throughout the entire ship. The transformation did not stop with the initial victims. The liquid continued to expand and assimilated every living being aboard. Within hours, the entire ship was engulfed. Myself and my crew have now become amorphous liquid blobs. We are still in total control of our faculties, or at least I am, and most in my crew appear to be. But we no longer have bodies as we once knew them. We can reshape ourselves to some extent. I actually believe that we may be able to improve this ability with time and practice, reshaping ourselves, that is. The nucleus still appears to control the liquid that surges throughout the ship, though why we are transformed is entirely unclear. I speculate if we were supposed to be transformed into some sort of hive consciousness, but for whatever reason, it was incomplete or unsuccessful. But that is my only theory for why this nucleus attempted to do what it did. Despite everything, this fluidic feature may be an improvement upon the human form. Although we have barely touched the surface of our capabilities, I think we will find ourselves far better able to adapt to different environments than before. In this case, perhaps the flesh was weak, and we have become something more, despite the fact that this has clearly cost us our humanity somewhat. I recommend that we are picked up and escorted to a safe quarantine research facility. Although my crew are alive and well, I can't imagine what would happen should an entire planet of humans be affected by this liquid conversion. I assume it would go down quite poorly with the general population. We now move on to chemical Wasteland. This planet's atmosphere contains a staggering amount of antibacterial agents. Sensors indicate zero signs of organic life in the immediate vicinity. Even on a microscopic level, it has been chemically removed. There is a faint biological reading emanating from a distant cavern, but from this range it is impossible to qualify. Several clusters of robots have been witnessed patrolling the skies, but as of yet they have not reacted to our presence. We decided to investigate the small group of drones patrolling the sky. These sparkling metallic balls have front-facing holographic projectors and a system of directional thrusters to maintain their speed and altitude. We kept a cautious distance on approach, but the drones soon reacted to our presence. 4 of them splintered from the pack and changed trajectory to meet us. Although I should note, at a rather slow pace. It would appear that we have not triggered an alarm, but the approaching drone's capabilities are unknown. The 4 drones slowly approached us and examined the vessel's surface. One of the drones then primed its right barrel, preparing to fire. Before we could react, the drone squirted compressed foam over one section of the rift sphere. From its left barrel, it revealed a limb with a soft yet durable attachment and began to scrub away debris and dust from our hull. The other drones shortly followed suit, and as the cleaning progressed, one of the drones stopped and switched its attachment to a delicate swab. With a loud beep, it collected a sample and turned away, and, after some further cleaning, the remaining drones departed in the same direction. We tracked the drones and intend to follow them shortly, but first we wanted to explore the nearby cave system. The cave that we entered had a markedly different atmosphere from the rest of the planet. The interior walls were heavy with moss, and the soil was moist and rich with organic material. The desiccated remains of an avian creature lay in a secluded alcove, and we assumed that the creature was intelligent based on its attire and belongings. Given that the rest of the planet was devoid of biological material, living or dead, this corpse and the surrounding plant life stand out as somewhat of an anomaly. Skewered on a nearby rock, we discovered a drone. While still operational, it was unable to move. This drone was a similar design to those that had cleaned our vessels. It was clearly designed to distribute an unknown chemical solution in large quantities, but we did identify that many of the machine's internal components remained intact and could easily be repaired. We chose to conduct a quick autopsy on the avian alien, and the autopsy revealed no serious internal or external wounds. The creature possessed all the typical features of an avian species: hollow bones, keratin-coated talons, and evidence of full plumage. The most likely cause of death was malnutrition. DNA analysis indicated that the species has, or rather had, a naturally weak immune system. Oddly, the body also contained trapped deposits of an antibacterial solution. With no real answers, we repaired and reactivated the drone. With the research team armed and ready, we freed the drone from the rockfall, and it quickly began to hover in place using a compact system of directional thrusters. With a forceful splat, the drone squirted and compressed foam over the entire team, and as before when they had cleaned our vessel, from its left barrel it revealed a soft yet durable attachment and proceeded to scrub us clean. The team allowed this, as the drone clearly meant no harm. Suddenly, the drone stopped. Its cleaning attachment was replaced by a delicate swab, just as before, and it used to collect a sample of dirt. Its holographic projector displayed a simple visual interface. The dirt was analysed and categorised as a new target for cleansing. It seems that we have introduced a foreign material to its environment. Shortly after, the drone buzzed away. We traced the drone's route back to an advanced facility. Standing tall against the sterile landscape, the building was circled by drones. Each was buzzing between various zones to complete their task. At the heart of the facility was a nexus of scientific equipment and research terminals. Oddly, while most of the operations were fully automated, The area seemed designed for manual research, tasks to be completed by sentient life, as opposed to the drones. We entered the lab in order to explore further. It became extremely obvious that the lab had been untouched for several years. Unlike the rest of the planet, it was caked in dust and grime. Information gleaned from the illuminated displays confirmed that the drones were fully autonomous cleaning devices. They were assigned to patrol a designated area, sterilize it, and return to the facility when low on power or chemicals. The drones were powered by a variety of renewable energy sources, and their cleaning fluid was recycled from airborne vapor and groundwater, creating a self-sustaining network that can function almost indefinitely. We theorized that the creators of these autonomous drones either left the planet or went extinct, as every biological trace of their existence has been scrubbed away. We soon found the drone that had sampled our hull, and it hovered alone in the laboratory with its holographic projector illuminated, displaying a simple visual interface. Just as before with the drone that we had found in the cave, the substance it had removed from the ship had been analysed and categorised as a new cleaning target. We are a target for cleaning, it would seem. We quickly determined that there was only one conclusion. These avians accidentally drove themselves to extinction through a long-term campaign of over-sanitization. As a species with a naturally weak immune system, they created cleaning drones to disinfect public and private spaces in order to reduce the spread of disease. However, given the state of the planet's landscape, we can assume that the cleaning drones went too far in exterminating native life, resulting in the destruction of organic biodiversity on the planet. Simply put, the population starved to death. As the bodies decomposed, the drones scrubbed away every trace of their existence, and as for the remains in the cave, the presence of a functional drone in the area likely diverted the other drones for sake of efficiency, leaving the plant life in the cave intact. The avian creature must have exploited this programming functionality in order to attempt to survive there, but unfortunately, the cave's meagre plant life could not sustain it indefinitely. We haphazardly shut down the systems within the automated sanitization facility. We began to drain every last generator, power store, and battery, and managed to harvest a significant amount of energy. Furthermore, after some minor adjustments, this refurbished sanitation drone will make for an excellent research assistant, with the ability to collect biological samples, perform high dexterity tasks, and has the power of independent flight. It has great potential as part of our research team. We disconnected the drone from the sanitation network and installed new features to complement its existing capabilities. We will continue to track its performance as it works alongside our science team. And finally, faced with the risk of a huge number of these autonomous drones swarming us, we decided we should make a quick retreat and have returned back into our plane of existence with our new pet drone. Next up, we have the siege on Paradise, and I'll give both perspectives for you. I shall detail the encounter for you shortly, but first a brief overview of who the Baol are. The Baol were originally discovered quite by accident. A research team was documenting an ancient race known as the Grunur. The Grunur were a particularly unpleasant militaristic empire who focused on expansion through conflict. They existed approximately 7 million years ago, and it is from data crystals discovered at a Grunur dig site that we first learn of the Baol and their conflict with the Grunur. According to the Grunur data and our own archaeological discoveries, the Baol were a plantoid hive mind, at least 10 million years old. They appear to have originated from a single planet and evolved from plant life native to that world. It would seem that the prehistoric Baol were all clones, and gradually developed the capacity for hive consciousness over millions of years in a slow and peaceful growth on their homeworld. Although clearly very alien to our own biology, the Baol were sentient and very capable. We know that they developed the ability to traverse the stars and settle other worlds, and they did this through remarkable integration of organic technology, building organic structures with materials that would rival the best our own engineers can produce. We also know that they were long-lived, surviving for many hundreds of Earth years. We also know that they occupied multiple worlds and had an empathic ability to communicate across vast distances. It is unclear precisely how messages were sent between individual Baol specimens, but there does not appear to be any distance that prevented communication. Sadly for the Baol, the Grunur did not appreciate the majesty of their race, and although in many ways the Baol were advanced, it seems they did not have much in the way of defending themselves from a technologically advanced spacefaring civilization. Multiple examples of Grunur cruelty and aggression have been identified. Upon first encountering the Baol, the Grunur designated them worthy of their attention. The Baol's plentiful resources are referenced, but given the Grunur methods of war, it seems acquiring resource was not the primary objective. There is plenty of evidence suggesting that although the Grunur would occupy and enslave, they often just firebombed entire planets, the goal simply to decimate worlds. The Grunur described the Baol as feeble and slow to react, and it seems any defense the Baol had was easily swept aside. Back to the present and the exploration of the Astral Rift. During routine exploration of an Astral Rift, we found ourselves approximately 7 million years in the past, but we did not know it immediately at least. Dr. Watney reports on our meeting with the Baol. We arrived on a thriving planet. From its dense forests to the verdant plains, this landscape was once diverse and excellently maintained. A vibrant planet-wide garden. We identified a plantoid species that had erected extensive fortifications around semi-organic cities. Scans of the local star systems revealed a blockade of heavily equipped warships. There was no immediate active conflict, but it was quite clear to us that one was brewing. We had the options of attempting to contact the planet's inhabitants, or the fleet in orbit. And we chose to contact the plantoids, in the hope that they were who we thought they were. On the planet's surface, we encountered massive creatures whose bodies were formed by an intricate network of roots. One in particular spoke to us. It spoke with a deep, earthly resonance in a language that we could not understand. The creature bade I held out my hand, and it offered me a seedling, which gently anchored itself into the skin on my hand. Its grasping roots were formed of a strange material that I believe extended to touch my nervous system. There was a moment of instantaneous recognition, thought and root aligned, and direct communication was established between me and the seedling. And it spoke to me. Halt, unidentified sapient. Please explain how you bypass the blockade. Are you here to parley? We make preparations for a coming battle. Regrettably, your expedition may be in much more danger than you previously assessed, the seedling continued. We are the Baol, and you have landed on one of our outer colonies. We are under siege, and our resources diminish. To attempt diplomacy is useless. The aggressors mock us openly. They laugh at our attempts to communicate with them. They identify themselves as the Grunur. We believe that their aim is not to conquer our worlds, but to destroy them. It seems that they know no mercy, and we would graciously accept any assistance that you can provide us. Dr. Watney, a proud botanist, an expert on the precursor race the Baol, instantly offered to help. The doctor immediately engaged in discussions with the Baol to determine a practical way that we could lend aid. It appeared that the Baol had attempted to defend themselves, but their military capabilities were quite limited. They could benefit from mechanical or genetic enhancement to improve their army's speed, strength, and resistance to incendiary weapons. But we also suggested the option to help them evade the Grunur by obscuring their homeworld with a cloaking device. They may lose this colony, but at least the seat of their civilization may survive. The final option that we could offer was to preserve their seedlings. Although their civilization may be destroyed, we could reseed them in our own timeline. It was quickly decided that we should help the Baol species in any way we could, and as such we used our knowledge of gene tailoring technology to fortify the Baol species for their upcoming defensive war. With few options left to them, they reluctantly accepted the changes to their biology. The pacifistic Baol Empire, built on agriculture and ecosystem management, is now populated by a standing militia with tremendous physical strength. They are now more than prepared for land warfare. Shortly after we had completed the genetic transfer, the Grunur decided that they had rattled the saber enough. They landed ground troops and attempted to assault the Baol position. Dr. Watney witnessed these events. and describes them as follows. In the fading twilight of the alien world, the air was thick with an eerie tension. Baol and I stood side by side, watching the descent of the Grunur landing craft. There was no time for us to evacuate post-genetic transfer. Whether the Grunur had identified our presence, we do not know, but whatever the reason, they had decided to attack in significant force. They had forgone their normal doctrine of firebombing and chosen to land ground assault forces. Perhaps they wanted slaves. Perhaps they wanted us. We would soon find out. We had endowed much strength onto the Baol defenders. Marvellous creatures, it must be said. They had various defensive forms already, but the protectors would be key. They stood almost 4 times my height, pushing upwards almost 10 meters. Their bioluminescent tendrils casting an otherworldly glow across the landscape. The Grunur descended onto the planet's surface, their landing craft creating violent shockwaves causing the native flora to recoil in response, and the advance of their troops began. They were clad in some form of battle armor and wielding incendiary weapons, capable of sending semi-liquid material many tens of meters into the air. The Grunur began burning the flora around them, purely out of spite it would seem, and advanced towards our position. Little did they know the force that was about to come their way. The several thousand Grunur ground forces had advanced well beyond the safety of their ships by this point. They were only a few hundred meters from the wall, with no verbal command given, nothing that I heard at least. Great vines and roots began sprouting from the ground, binding onto the feet, ankles and legs of the assaulting Grunur forces. With the precision and grace that only a hive mind can achieve, Baol artillery units opened fire. Beautiful flowers that had sprouted mere days before, then in one moment glowed with a beautiful bioluminescence, quickly became fire and rage as they spat some sort of energy or plasma towards the assaulting troopers. The energy quite literally dissolved the Grunur. This artillery barrage was quickly followed up by waves of protectors sallying forth over the wall and charging the Grunur directly. Who at this point were beginning to panic. It would seem our genetic modification had certainly tweaked the Baol pacifistic nature. The assault was savage, brutal and swift. Words do not do it justice. It was over in mere moments. Imagine being rooted in place, your friends around you dying to plasma burns, when a 10-meter tall tree slams down upon you, pulverizing you into nothing more than a bloody mess. The Grunur attempted to burn through the protectors, but the genetic upgrades had made them all but invulnerable to fire and flame. I wonder, have we done the right thing, or have we unleashed a new menace upon the galaxy? After the battle, we made to leave and return home back to our dimension. The Baol, however, offered us a defensive node out of gratitude, a leader among their protector class. It is essentially a specialized semi-autonomous creature, and according to the creature, it is called Oakenstalk. We of course questioned this Oakenstalk, for how can a hive mind produce an individual unit? It is most intriguing. The creature spoke with a slow deliberation. It would be a mistake to take it slumbering for a lack of intelligence. Specialized to defend the collective, the organism represents the pinnacle of generations of careful adaptation, with our genetic manipulation on top. Oakenstalk greets us grimly, but politely, intent on repaying the favour that we bestowed upon its hive. We asked it several questions, starting with its purpose. Oakenstalk replied by saying that this one was tasked with preparing the colony for defensive war. This involved managing limited resources while under siege, as well as the design and upkeep of the military fortifications. This one maintained steady population levels, despite the blockade. This one's work was deemed useful. We asked the creature how it felt about joining us. It responded by saying that this one did all it could for the Baol. In that role there was no further room for growth, and when a living system fails to grow, it begins to die. In our dimension, perhaps there was opportunity for service, and thus hope for renewal. We asked the creature how it felt to be separated from its collective, and it responded by saying, limited, frustrating, exhilarating. The sensation was unlike anything that this one had ever experienced. However, the sooner that it was integrated into the workings of our empire, the better. It is much more agreeable to work in the service of a greater entity after all. And the final question we asked was, how did you choose your name? Creature responded once more, One of your researchers that came through the Astral Rift provided this one with an artificially intelligent X-generation program, a query that was made based upon this one's qualities, and it returned Oakenstalk. It feels suitable. However, I am noticing that other humans are starting to call me Thorin, and I do not understand the reference. We have recently conquered several Blorg systems, and it would appear that they have also investigated several Astral Rifts, one of which contained a Grunur and Baol conflict. It would appear that the Blorg, frustratingly stupid as ever, did not side with the Baol. Instead, they went to attempt to befriend the Grunur. I shall detail the stolen report for you now. Blorg scientist Lucas Mountbatten reporting, 4th class scientist aboard the Blorg vessel Befriender 5. We arrived on a thriving planet. From its dense forest to the verdant plains, the landscape was diverse and immaculately maintained. It was a vibrant planet-wide garden. An unidentified plantoid species had erected extensive fortifications around the semi-organic city. Scans of the local star system also revealed a blockade of heavily equipped warships. There was no active conflict, but it was quite clear that one was brewing. Given the military blockade, it seemed far more prudent for us to contact the orbiting fleet, and thus that's exactly what we did. We took our vessel out of the planet's atmosphere and entered orbit around the Gaia planet. We were immediately and aggressively confronted by the patrolling warships. Our attempts at communication were met with silence, and a patrol of corvettes quickly escorted us to their flagship, which was a heavily outfitted juggernaut surrounded by dozens of support vessels. Landing our vessel in a large hangar, we were immediately taken into custody by a squad of soldiers. Their armoured carapaces and jagged pincers reminded us of several well-known species of crustacean. Marching forward in a perfect lockstep, they presented an intimidating image, but the beady eyes protruding from their armoured heads were alert and clearly intelligent. We quickly recognized the species as the Grunur. They were a highly aggressive race that lived in our universe several million years ago. Famously, this species was responsible for the genocide of the plantoid hive mind known as the Baol. I note that we acquired this information through reports made by a human lord designated the Red King. Quite a wonderful chap, if I do say so myself. In any case, we hypothesized that this rift has deposited us in a parallel universe in which the Grunur remain militarily active, and at least from our small assessment, will easily win this engagement. We were soon shepherded into a central chamber. A complex control panel housed several massive crustaceans. Their pincers were slotted with remarkable precision into specialized interfaces. Each terminal contained a font of crystals, which were apparently manipulated by the sounds produced from deep within the crew members' chests. In the center of the room stood an admiral in tattered regalia. It barked a command, and its subordinates quickly broke into action. One of my research assistants, a good Blorg, was quickly restrained and appeared to be scanned. To my horror, a probe was fatally stabbed through their face, which quickly extracted their brain whole. The organ was quickly passed to the crustacean leader, who impaled it upon one of the crystals on their command console. A ringing voice resonated out from the crystal, in our native language. It said, "It is time for talking. Who are you?" All I could manage to get out in response was to state that we are explorers, and we seek friends, my colleague's body still gushing and oozing juices all over the deck. I introduced myself as a scientist from a parallel universe, and attempted to explain that in our world the Grunur have long since disappeared. Based on the archaeological record, they were a race of conquerors possessing a vast arsenal of advanced weaponry, as well as a tendency for cruelty. Their extermination of the Baol is legendary both for its efficiency as well as its spectacle. They are destined to destroy the Baol colony in this system, and as our words were translated, the Grunur soldiers emitted a series of popping gasps. We took this to be their version of laughter. However, the obstinate silence of the ship's leader soon restored decorum. Through the translation crystal it spoke once more. Knowing then, if knowing is, then giving will be. In short, I quickly realised that they requested technology from us. Given that this may be the transaction that my life depends on, I chose to share crystal armour technology with them. And almost immediately, the air of confrontation began to wane. The Grunur were obviously impressed with our commitment to advanced warfare. We were told that they plan to use the technology in their upcoming extermination campaign, and as a show of gratitude, the Admiral gifted us a data crystal. From the explanation provided, we understand that it contains valuable military secrets, including previously unknown stratagems and techniques. Perhaps less helpfully, it also includes a meticulous detailed account of the Grunur's military history, a record that spans hundreds of volumes. I think this may be handy to trade with the humans when we return. They are so inquisitive after all. Furthermore, we shared with the Grunur what we knew of the Baol race. This appeared to go down well. The Grunur leader appreciated what we were able to share. I posit that given the Grunur's lack of interest in espionage and other methods of indirect warfare, our information will undoubtedly help them refine their strategy during the upcoming extermination. Despite all this, their admiral remained guarded, stating, "Knowing is, but seeing is better. Witness extermination, then more learning." It appeared that the admiral wished us to witness them destroying the Baol, but frankly, it wasn't entirely clear. Thus, I went into a tirade of storytelling, trying to woe the Grunur commander, as he did appear quite simple-minded, if I'm honest. It was a risky gambit, but my bravado paid off. The Grunur general was particularly impressed by our tales of slipping between the universes via the Rift Sphere. It seems that such displays of bravery and prowess are a typical thing for the Grunur. To them, a conversation always has a winner and a loser, and this dialogue had apparently scored us some points. We even witnessed some pincer clacking in approval. Eventually, the leader rose from their terminal with a series of measured croaks. Bravery is, but doing is best. Respect to be gained. A crystalline shaft rose before us, similar to the ones erected around the command console. The general spoke again. Launching begins. Order awaits. Oddly, the general was gesturing towards a button at the end of the command console, one I assume would order the assault. It wasn't entirely clear why he wanted us to be the ones to start the genocide, but it was a test that I was not going to fail. We watched from orbit as the Grunur began their bombardment of the colony. The overwhelming superiority of their fleet swiftly demolished the Baol's feeble defences. As the Grunur brigade stormed the planet's surface, all was set to flame. Troops armed with flamethrowers incinerated the native plantoids with terrible efficiency. The inevitable victory softened the Grunur general's croaks. Seeing is, burning is, knowing now. A sample of the flame weaponry used in the attack was brought forth for our inspection. Burning is clean. Take. Make fear. The plans for these flamethrowers were gifted to us, along with the chemical component used to power them. And with the historical archive in tow, we made haste off the Grunur ship. The archive was quickly analysed, and it made for disturbing reading. Their military exploits are decidedly sadistic. We did discover, however, one uniquely advanced aspect of their voidcraft, which we hope will revolutionise our current weapon systems. While designated for Grunur biology, we hope we can adapt the interface to improve our targeting accuracy. Despite the horror we witnessed in this rift, our capacity for forced friendship has increased, and we are the better for it. Maybe we should simply burn those who don't wish to be our friends. Lucas Mattenbaum, signing off. Long live the Blorg Empire. Next up we have tropical habitat. We arrived in the atmosphere of a lush tropical planet. The flora was intensely pigmented, and swollen molluscoids slither among fruit-bearing trees. An atypical pink daze occasionally bursts through the kaleidoscopic canopy. Given the density of the foliage, we will need to continue our observations from the ground. We quickly found a suitable landing spot and brought the ship down. This planet, on first glance, screams Deathworld. We will have to be quite cautious here. Upon landing, we exposed a crack in the terrain, hidden upon layers of loam. The amber-coloured gas that we observed from above was even more heavily concentrated below. My team and I speculated that this opening was a previously active vent from deep within the planet's core. From here, however, the vegetation's variety is dizzying and dense with fruit-laden trees. Herds of bulbous, lumbering slugs slowly crawl through the jungle, eating contentedly or sleeping on the nutrient-dense soil, surrounded by litters of their younglings. I ordered that we take samples of the pink gas and the soil. Perhaps the gas was fertilizing the fauna, creating a luscious environment. After rudimentary analysis, we discovered that the gas has a powerful mind-numbing effect that can render all manner of biological life docile and self-satisfied. Under its influence, an intelligent entity will only attempt to satisfy its most basic needs, all while feeling a great sense of accomplishment while doing so. It sounds rather wonderful. Additionally, the gas encourages fat development by affecting the production of natural hormones in those that inhale it. This in turn increases the affected creature's appetite due to a weaker control over nutrient distribution and autoimmune responses. Over time, the result would be an endless reinforcement cycle of overconsumption, and we could confirm that based on analysis, the gas is biologically produced. We have found enzymes in it, but as of yet, we are unable to locate the animal producing it. For deeper exploration into the cave, we will require full respiratory equipment in order to prevent us from intoxication. Utilizing an air quality sensor, we searched for the highest localized concentrations of the gas across the luscious land. Beyond a patch of berry-laden shrubbery, we were led into the mouth of a vast crevice in the center of a clearing. Waves of thick pink miasma emanated from the cave at regular intervals. My team and I believe that the gases were being produced by a subterranean creature, and we intend to investigate further. Hopefully, finding the creature alive, it could provide us with a unique research opportunity, and thus excavation of the chasm has begun. We entered the chasm with rudimentary climbing gear in search of the creature below, and as we descended, the mineralized walls transitioned from a moist yellow soil to a scaly dark pink. Further down, all would become pulsating crimson. Eruptions of thick gas covered us as we continued our descent. Reaching the bottom, we discovered its source, a webbed curtain stretched across the chasm's diameter, suspending an orifice with a beak-like mouth at its center. From this creature, a thickly veined tube snaked its way further into the rock. It would appear that we have found carnivorous life, and I suspect it may be the planet itself. I ordered the team to retrofit the Rift Sphere's sample collection apparatus into an excavation tool, and we used it to dig away at the mouth of the chasm. After cutting through a thick layer of moist yellow mulch, we discovered a new layer of soil. As before, it was dark yellow in colour. It soon broke into the scale-like layered fragment as we dug, and as we dug further, it began to release small bursts of trapped pink gas from the slightest mechanical agitation. While this layer of soil contained a high concentration of organic compound, it was not nearly enough to have been the source of the gas. As we dug deeper, the harvesting tool then pierced through a darker, more crimson-coloured soil. At this, the ground would erupt violently. Thick clouds of pink gas began to pour forward from the gouge that we had made. This darker earth moved as if it was alive. Our harvesting tool was rapidly enveloped in a scarlet earth and crushed to scrap. The surface around us shook with increasingly violent tremors, and we retreated back out of harm's way, for now. This mouth that we have identified, or whatever orifice the creature uses to feed, is intriguing indeed, and I wished to sample it. Thus, we would make an attempt to do just that. We re-entered the cave and approached the orifice. We made several quick cuts and severed the mouth from the central tube jutting out of the crimson rock, and then quickly began our ascent once again. Just as before, the walls of the chasm would shake violently, and a stream of concentrated biological gas flooded the tunnel. We felt the entire chamber shake, and the way out began to grow smaller and smaller as we approached the surface. Whatever this creature was, it was attempting to swallow us. Fortunately, we made it back to the Rift Sphere in time, and we began study of the two specimens that we had acquired. We started with analysis of the pink peculiar soil that we had collected, and confirmed it was indeed the existence of a wider mineral-based biological organism. We believed that the material and the crimson substance that crushed our tool was all part of the same being. the planet itself. Our working hypothesis is that this sentient planet manufactured its own ecosystem, designed to continuously provide it with a highly nutritious and submissive livestock. The soil on this world has a remarkable fertilization property and explains the extreme density of the vegetation on the surface. We have been able to apply some of its principles into our own farming methods, and we hope that we will be able to increase our food output. Furthermore, after extensive experiments with the severed digestive organ, we've gained further insight into the ecosystem of the planet. We think that the soil is part of the living being as well. Within its digestive tract, there are sacs of this highly concentrated biological material that we believe it pushes up into the lower atmosphere to be vaporized. This aerosol gas will eventually settle as the soil and is designed to fatten up the animals that live on the surface and prevent predators from evolving. The intoxicated animals are then consumed by the planet via the large openings similar to the one that we encountered. The mouth that we recovered is one of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands on the planet. A remarkable creature indeed. And further to this discovery, using this gas, we have learned how to synthetically reproduce it and alter it into a practical application as a battlefield painkiller. We amplify the anesthetic effects of the gas and will remove the aggression suppression. And so we ended up with a gas that will allow soldiers to ignore pain and injury and continue to fight on, for the glory of the Commonwealth. And now on to Bleached Planet. We exited the event horizon of the Astral Rift, and we found ourselves in the atmosphere of a continental world. The planet looked potentially habitable, however the terrain and foliage had significant discoloration. It's as if the surfaces, and everything on them, had been bleached white. Despite the obvious presence of flora, onboard sensors indicated no signs of life. A thorough analysis of the planet's ecosystem will require a direct biological survey. We have located a potential landing site, and are heading there now. Leaving the rift sphere, we spread out to investigate the surroundings. The soil consisted of a number of brittle layers, which disintegrated under the pressure of footsteps. The plant life was also fragile, crumbling at even the slightest touch. We have observed sprouts jutting from the ground and presence of buds on the branches. There are clear signs of life, but our instruments continued to deny it. We've also found trace amounts of core minerals, but it's difficult to imagine how anything can grow under such conditions. It's very odd. The soil should barely sustain a seedling, let alone be budding ground. As the survey continued, we began to detect movement under the Earth. Based on its current trajectory, whatever was coming would breach the surface in less than an hour. As such, we retreated back to our ship and are now hovering several kilometers above the surface to avoid detection. As the underground movement grew stronger, we watched from above as the brittle terrain erupted in a matrix of small holes. From each of these popped a small lithoid lifeform. Their rough-hewn forms occupied the land from horizon to horizon, including our previous landing site. Despite their rugged exteriors, the creatures moved gracefully through the silted surface. They took care not to damage the fragile plant life. Remarkably, onboard sensors still do not detect any signs of life. As one, the creatures stood up and faced the horizon. They have not yet reacted to our presence, yet there is a clear sense of anticipation. But for what? I cannot answer. While we are waiting for something to happen, we decided to grab one of the lithoid creatures for further observation, and we brought it aboard the sphere. They appear most docile. The lithoid creature became agitated if it was turned away from the direction of the brightening horizon, but other than that, it was fully compliant. The lifeform was roughly half a meter tall and extremely dense, with its front side a much lighter shade of grey than its back. It had two bleached eyes that were sunk deep into their sockets, and its exterior was hot to the touch. They had no visible mouths, and they must receive their nourishment by some other means. It is a primitive species, but with interesting character and a pleasant scent. It would make for quite an excellent pet. Clearly the rising sun was something worthy of observation, however. We followed the gaze of the creatures towards the horizon, and soon a haze began to blanket the ashen surface of the planet. In the sky, a dark star was rising. The rays of this dark star sent shivers of anticipation throughout our bodies. The lithoid creatures began to shuffle in place as the sky deepened. Black light splintered over the horizon. A sudden chill overcame myself and the crew. We were bathed in the light of the dark star. We felt a sort of emptiness, as if our energy was being siphoned away. We have ample time to escape should we wish to, but among the team there is a morbid curiosity as to what the phenomenon can mean for us scientifically. We continued to gaze at the star in its infinite radiance. Its light graced our minds and our souls, illuminating and consuming everything that it touched. The dark star saw through us, took from us with tenderness, and shepherded us from ignorance. Our sight was taken, and in return we were granted purpose and truth. The path ahead became clear, and our thirst for knowledge revitalized. We dare not turn away from the glorious light of this black star. After an unknown amount of time had passed, our emergency anchor cable was pulled for us. As our sphere exited the rift, the light of the star grew weaker, and weaker in its effects as well. It feels almost malevolent. Even during our retreat, the touch of its rays could be felt through the hull of the ship, draining energy from our bodies like an insidious poison. I returned to normal space, but blinded. And yet, I feel somewhat better, as if I've gained intellect in the place of my eyesight. Despite my now obvious limitations, it is my wish to continue work and explore other strange new worlds. And that, my lords, is precisely what happened. Despite Dr. Kane's condition, now dubbed Black Light Blinded, they continued on. The next rift they explored was designated Rockworms. Myself and my crew found ourselves floating above a vast plain of loose rock and gravel. Above it hung a pale, empty sky. No planets or stars could be seen here. This does not appear to be part of a galaxy or any known star system. As far as our sensors could detect, this landscape continues infinitely in all directions. The surface is pockmarked with holes as large as some asteroids. All across the horizon, dozens of massive worm-like creatures are bursting from the ground. Pairs of powerful fins allow them to glide through the dense atmosphere. They must have some type of colony underground. But there are more than just worms living here. Swarms of microscopic creatures form clouds in the lower atmosphere, moving as one mass. They create complex patterns across the sky. As the massive worms breach from their tunnels, they glide in the air, grazing among the living clouds. We have watched as several worms working together flush these swarms towards one another. The level of cooperation is fairly sophisticated. I've chosen to enter and explore these subterranean tunnels. Beneath the surface lies a vast network of chambers connected by a series of complex tunnels. Several of these were partially collapsed and appeared not to be in use by the worms. We piloted into the quietest of the tunnels. The walls were covered in a web-like substance which keeps the shale and loose gravel in place. We speculated that these are secretions from the worms. Most of the chambers appeared empty, but some contained murky pools of water. Within one, we encountered a clutch of large, mineralized cocoons that were half submerged in the liquid. We discovered a shallow lake deep within the tunnel system. The walls are writhing. Larvae, as large as a cruiser, are busy gnawing at the petrified secretions that hold the chamber together. While much smaller in size, they are almost certainly juvenile versions of the worms we saw gliding on the surface. We think that this is a nursery of sorts, and we attempted to take samples from one of the creatures. This, as it turns out, was not a good idea. Our situation was normal, however we have been eaten. My ship is currently encased within one of the rockworm's digestive systems. We don't know if this was an aggressive act or if the worm was simply grazing. The digestive juices secreted by the worm appear mild, but I'm quite sure that we cannot remain here indefinitely. By pulling the anchor, we could force ourselves through a gap in the worm's mouth. Unfortunately, our anchor cable proved to be a lifeline. Like bait on a fishing line, we had been pulled free from the gullet of the rockworm, and free from all restrictions. We had been able to recover a significant amount of egg clusters from the pools inside these chambers. Encased in a crystalline shell, we should be able to transport these durable spawn to a planet of our choosing. Perhaps their younglings can be trained to dig mining tunnels for us. We have returned from beyond the Astral Rift intact, but we are certainly worse for wear. Having spent a significant time inside the belly of the rockworm, being partially digested, I feel myself physically diminished, and may be one of the only scientists to have ever survived 2 incredibly perilous astral rifts, and yet I only yearn for more. The third and final astral rift Dr. Kane explored and reported on was designated Volcanic Plane. We exited the event horizon and we found ourselves inside the atmosphere of a molten planet. The temperatures here are incredibly high. Looming in the distance is a black obelisk. A series of artificial magma channels converge on this vast monument, neatly carving up the rocky landscape. Glowing orb-like creatures float quietly in the sky. Bioluminescent tendrils drape from their delicate forms. From this distance we cannot tell if they're hostile or not, but at least for the moment, they do not seem to have noticed us. The obelisk seems like the most pressing thing to investigate, but many of the floating organisms are flying uncomfortably close. Perhaps it would be safer to observe our surroundings before getting too close to the obelisk, and as such, I ordered that we surveyed a perimeter of the site. Best not rush things for now. This turned out to be a wise decision, as there is clearly more danger here than we initially thought. Small chambers line the walls of this place. They are packed with a wide variety of living organisms. At the sight of us, they are rattling the bars that contain them, and wailing in various unknown languages. From time to time, we witness the bulbous, floating creatures enter these cavities and subdue the prisoners with a bioelectric shock. Unfortunately, one of the floating orbs began to take interest in us and is now approaching our rift sphere. Even with our engines at maximum, it is slowly gaining on us. Its long tendrils trail in its wake, aglow with a heavy electric charge. Below us, a vast river of lava floods the obsidian landscape. The heat shielding that we have prepared should allow us to survive for a short time under its surface. To evade notice, we have dipped ourselves into the river of molten lava below us. The protective coating that we had applied as a precaution allowed us to survive long enough to emerge some distance away, hidden from the attention of the floating creatures. Several hours have passed, and we believe that the creatures above us have now moved on. Thus, we resurfaced to investigate further, and namely, we intend to investigate this obelisk. Propelling ourselves quietly along, we arrived in close proximity of the massive obelisk. Obsidian black, it stretches to the ceiling of this volcanic chamber. If it is indeed ancient, it is unblemished. What first appeared as a decoration has now been revealed itself as a pattern. Yet indecipherable, molten runes swirl along its surface in a deliberate arrangement. Translation, we believe, is possible given enough time. Our target tracking computers have detected that the creatures patrolling the area move faster the closer they are to this object. We have extrapolated that whatever this structure is, these beings are tethered to it in some way. Destroying it with a charge of compressed gas could inhibit their ability to function. I've opted to attempt a translation of the text on the obelisk, and work is already underway. It is a list of names. Trillions and trillions of names cover this obelisk, arranged in a complicated mathematical pattern. They shift and change as we observe them. The facets of this obelisk are uniquely aligned, allowing each name to be precisely true to one of the alcoves along the wall. Touching any one name with a probe results in a corresponding chamber lighting up with dangerous amounts of energy and a pitiful wailing. Unfortunately, upon doing this, we have attracted the attention of the floating creatures once more. This time, our attempts to avoid detection were unsuccessful, and as we attempted to flee, a small flock of the strange floating creatures were quick to pursue us. We are now bound by their glowing tendrils, and we are being towed along forcefully. Any attempt at communication has proven fruitless. They are steadily carrying us towards a cage embedded in the nearby wall. Chains and bars are being pulled aside, making way for our passage. Many diverse forms of sentient life occupy similar enclosures along the way. The creature's tendrils are wrapped tightly around our vessel. This, my lords, was the last time we heard from Dr. Kane. We do not know what happened to the Doctor or his crew within the rift. Upon retrieval of the rift sphere, we discovered it filled with smoke and ash. The bodies of the crew and the Doctor were not recovered, and we assumed that they had been lost forever beyond the rift. However, approximately 6 years later, would you believe it, but none other than Dr. Kane appeared on the bridge of our science nexus. But he is not as we remember him. Carbon samples indicate that he is now over 600 solar years old. He appears to be mostly mute, with occasional ramblings that sound like nothing more than religious nonsense. He speaks about restoring the balance, but refuses to elaborate any further, either on what this balance is or why he feels responsible for it. We released Dr. Kane back into public life, but without scientific clearance, and will monitor him closely. Given all of his ailments, we suspect that he does not have much time left in him. Nevertheless, he has been a resolute servant to the Empire over the years, and we should not simply discard him. Several months have now passed, and our government units have kept Dr. Kane under close investigation. However, we have discovered a disturbing development. The good doctor has been attempting to secretly send members of our population back through the Volcanic Rift. He claims that it is being done in an effort to restore the balance. What to do now with the Doctor, I shall leave in your capable hands, my lords. And now moving on to the Warplings, which incidentally may provide the best ground troops in the entire galaxy. Upon translation through the rift, we found ourselves in orbit of a tropical planet with only one solitary, unnatural formation. We took a shuttle down to the planet in order to investigate further. The alien facility emerged from the dense foliage of the jungle. It blended in with the vibrant and exotic environment. The facility appeared to be constructed with a combination of sleek metallic materials and bioluminescent elements, giving it an eerie yet intriguing appearance. Its exterior was characterized by a series of interconnected domes and angular structures, something that could be described as similar to botanical conservatories back on Earth. The materials used in construction appeared to be both lightweight and incredibly resilient, suggesting advanced alien technology. Around the perimeter of the facility, there are particular alien plants and strange luminescent fungi that seem to be intentionally cultivated. The flora appears to have a symbiotic relationship with the facility, enhancing its camouflage in the lush jungle surroundings. The alien architects seem to have attempted to integrate their technology with a natural ecosystem, creating an environment that feels both mysterious and yet harmonious. Security measures were evident in the form of concealed entrances, several automated energy weapons turrets, and deactivated energy barrier emitters that we assume were to deter unauthorized access, but perhaps to keep whatever was inside from getting out. The facility seemed to prioritize secrecy, and it was thanks only to our excellent science officers that we detected it at all. The automated weapon systems were quickly dealt with, and our portable tachyon laser cracked through the entrance in a matter of minutes. We've now entered the building, and it appears to be an abandoned research facility. The devices in this room are coated in a thick layer of dust, indicating that it's not been used for some time. We can detect no researchers, living or otherwise, and it would appear whoever the caretakers of this place may have been, they have long since gone. Heavy-duty shelves line the walls, each holding a large egg. Most of them are in various states of decay, but a few living specimens remain. At the centre of this chamber rests an open container filled with a pale, viscous liquid. An analysis of the fluid reveals that it contains high amounts of protein and amino acids. Judging from the residue left on some of the eggs, we speculate that the fluid was being injected by the researchers directly into the eggs. We've made the decision to attempt to open one of these eggs and see what's inside. We managed to open the healthiest looking specimen among the eggs. The embryo inside appeared malnourished and was covered with foreign parasites. Remarkably, the parasites appear to possess quantum properties that are unique to any known biological organism. The parasites warp randomly around the inside of the egg casing, and presumably inside the embryo itself. Given that so few living eggs remain in the laboratory, this particular specimen must be especially resistant to the parasite's behaviour. Astral tracing of both organisms indicate that the parasites originate from a distinct and distant dimension. We believe that the parasite may have been inadvertently summoned here and has interrupted the intended research of the facility. We have seen that the parasites are drawn to the vat of strange liquid in the centre of the chamber. Perhaps this is why they were attracted here in the first place. Two options were available to us. We could attempt to inject the liquid into the egg with the hope that we would nourish the creature inside. Or it was suggested that we simply euthanize the remaining creatures in the lab. We decided that these creatures warranted further investigation, and as such, we injected the liquid into the egg. Injecting the pale liquid into the exposed embryo has produced interesting results. In spite of the quantum parasites, the previously lethargic specimen has become reinvigorated. In fact, we may have miscalculated the dose. In a very short period of time, a more developed creature began pushing at the walls of the egg. The creature is covered in a lattice of overlapping armoured plates and spines. However, the parasites were also stimulated as they energetically teleported in and outside of the embryo. The creature's tissue is being damaged, and at this rate it will likely perish. We speculated that injecting a small amount of astral thread may satisfy the quantum parasites and prevent further damage. And as such, that's what we tried, and I'm most pleased to report that the experiment was successful. The astral thread that we injected into the embryo stabilized the quantum parasites. The now fully developed hatchling has emerged intact. It is incredibly obedient and was quick to learn the most basic of commands. Based on that, as well as its thick armoured hide and poisonous spines, we speculate that these creatures were being bred for war. Disturbingly, the creature has also demonstrated the ability to teleport small distances. The astral thread that we injected appears to have woven a unique symbiotic relationship between the creature and the parasite. We may have created something entirely too dangerous. We intend to bring it home for further study. If I may describe this creature in detail, a fully grown warpling stands roughly 2 meters tall. They do, however, tend to lean forwards, given the bulk of two very large talons protruding from its upper torso. The creature has a remarkable exoskeletal structure and distinctive organic armoured plating exterior adorned with bioluminescent patterns reminiscent of the ambient alien environments it inhabits. Indeed, although it appears grey in the laboratory, when we escorted it to the shuttle through the jungle, the creature's skin became various shades of green to match the jungle around it. Furthermore, several nodes are integrated into its carapace and swarm with the astral parasite. Ethereal energy sparks across its skin, and it is this that we believe is responsible for its teleportation capabilities. The creature manifests a slight mist during each teleportation event, and it seemingly dissolves and subsequently reconstitutes itself at the target location, indicative of its manipulation of spatial dimension. In tactical scenarios, the warpling leverages its teleportation prowess to become elusive and unpredictable. It employs rapid strategic displacements. It effectively navigates the battlefield, striking with precision before seamlessly evading retaliation. This unique adaptation not only enhances the creature's predatory efficacy, but also induces psychological trauma in adversaries, amplifying the disruptive nature of its engagements. Its teleportation abilities do appear to have limits. It appears to require no less than 4 seconds before it can reuse its teleportation power. They are, however, exceptionally quick runners anyway, and can jump upwards of 10 meters into the air. It's also worth remembering that these creatures were not originally designed with parasitic teleportation in mind, and as such, were already extremely capable. We've managed to bring a sufficient number of warplings to an outer research station, where we intend to facilitate breeding more. And now we move on to Entangled Complex. As we've done several times now, we translated through an Astral Rift, this time in the Peerless system. The journey through the planes was unremarkable, and we quickly arrived in a bustling star system surrounded by numerous wormholes, void craft of various shapes and sizes, and one extremely large, circular, brightly lit station. The enormous structure was covered with multicoloured signs in a garish, unfamiliar alien script. It appears to be an entertainment facility designed to attract an audience for a grand spectacle. Given the number of vessels present, whatever show is going to take place here has drawn quite an impressive crowd. We managed to dock at the busy space station without incident. An alien artificial intelligence signaled us onto the landing pad, and soon after exiting our vessel we were ushered towards the entrance of the facility. The walkway to the entrance was adorned with brightly coloured ribbons and decorations, and it appeared to be quite similar to the circus acts of old Earth. Once inside, we continued our exploration and attempted to blend in as part of the crowd. This was, though, fairly easy, as it was quite clear that there were no single species of alien here. Other than obvious small groups, there was almost every shape and size of creature imaginable: gaseous, solid, liquid, even one or two that appeared to be made completely of energy. As we approached the gates of the central dome, a robotic attendant swabbed each of our hands before allowing us to pass along with the other patrons. Inside, we beheld an amphitheatre of truly epic proportions. The bustling interior was crowded, with each member of the audience focused on the central performance area. No sooner had we taken our places than a troupe of vulpine mammalians in sparkling costumes appeared on stage. After a short display of advanced gymnastics, a small wormhole appeared in the centre of the stage, and one daring acrobat dove inside, shortly before the wormhole winked back out of existence. Then just as fast, another wormhole appeared high above the crowd, ejecting the performer, who deftly tumbled to the ground. The other performers then followed suit, weaving and catching one another in complex patterns through an ever-shifting series of wormholes. The crowd gasped as one of the acrobats slipped into a portal, and it closed, severing a limb from their body. Just as they were about to hit the ground, the wounded performer disappeared through yet another wormhole. The severed arm, however, dropped from the rafters, grabbed a trapeze as it fell, and then flung itself into the air. The one-armed acrobat reappeared and leapt high. They caught and reattached their prosthetic arm in mid-air, and then landed on a pyramid of the other performers in a grand finale. The crowd went wild. The next act appeared soon after. This time it was a large reptilian cyborg, and it lumbered into centre stage. It carried a number of huge metal weights, which it began to toss into its gargantuan jaw. With hydraulics hissing, it spat the weights into the air one after the other, catching them as they fell and launching them back up once again into the air in what would appear to be an effortless juggle. An announcement horn blared, causing some in the audience to stand up. A many-tentacled robot, a bipedal entity, and a living tangle of thick vines walked onto centre stage. These creatures then willingly jumped into the reptilian cyborg's mouth, and allowed them to be deftly juggled in the same manner. Then suddenly, the mechanical beast closed its great gaping maw around the three volunteers and squatted down low, compressing itself against the floor. Its huge frame glowed a molten orange, and once the process was complete, the performer opened its mouth, but only a single creature walked out. It had the bulbous head of the tentacled robot, the torso of the toxoid, and the thick limbs made from the plantoid's intertwined vines. The creature gestured to the crowd and evoked a stunned silence. The cyborg then re-ingested the biological amalgamation and spat out the three individuals once again, who appeared to be as good as new. The crowd's nervous silence quickly erupted into more cheers. The final act, a creature made of thick, grey stone, strolled onto the stage. It began bending into peculiar positions, contorting its blocky limbs into impossible knots, and then suddenly jumped high into the air and landed on wide fingertips to polite applause from the crowd. It would soon become apparent that this was only a setup to the true performance. The creature's movement began to slowly decelerate to the point at which time itself began to reverse. Its figure traced back along the arc of its previous jump and froze in mid-air. This brought the crowd to life. Suddenly the stasis was broken, and the creature returned to the ground and began to transform. Its body changed from a featureless grey stone to a sparkling red crystal, free-flowing sand, brittle blue shale, and more. All the while, it continued to perform an ever more complicated series of contortions. At the height of its performance, it burst into 1,000 prismatic shards. These froze mid-air in an intricate arrangement, refracting the stage's simple spotlight into a complex display of incredible colours and patterns. The shards slowly rewound themselves until the performer was made whole once again, and the creature left the stage to an unmatched roar from the crowd. The show was over, but the audience was invited to stick around to meet one of the acts. We saw this as an excellent opportunity to study the individual aliens in more detail, as each of them displayed abilities that we cannot even begin to comprehend, let alone replicate. Each performer was incredibly popular, and as such we only had time to see one. We chose to meet with the cyborg Moore. The reptilian cyborg stood at the height and width of a small transport ship, with a mouth large enough to nearly swallow it as well. Other characteristics included a grayscaled skin, patched with transparent electrical panels, a glowing energy core fastened onto its torso, and alloyed metal limbs complemented it with a complex system of hydraulics. Given its enormous size, the cyborg was anchored solidly to its spot, and could easily have been mistaken for a monument or statue. Many fans had brought the cyborg something to eat, which it seemed to appreciate. The aliens that volunteered to be eaten during the show were also present, posturing as part of the act. We decided to sneak in close and attempt to secure a tissue sample from the creature. However, in our attempts to sneak a piece of the cyborg's tissue, it appeared we angered it. It subsequently vomited a wave of thick, gloopy green slime on myself and the away team, and then we were quickly and roughly escorted out of the facility by security drones. Strangely enough, the slime once studied was observed to have remarkable healing properties on our skin. Small wounds and abrasions cleanly knitted themselves whole and left behind a pleasant sensation. This biologically dense fluid could be used as a solvent for a variety of medicinal and curative therapies back home. It would appear that we made the correct decision visiting the cyborg, and we shall put this new gel into production immediately. Okay, now we move on to the mechanism. We found ourselves on the other side of the rift, surrounded by giant machinery, gears and pinions, twisting in all directions. Each tenth of a second the machine clicked one step forward. A single tooth from one of these gears was nearly the width of our entire ship. It would appear that we are inside a gigantic machine, and there is no beginning or end to the device in sight. A thick misting, swirling nebulae of dense gas and fog drifts through the internals of the machine. Our sensors cannot penetrate very far, but we shall attempt to explore this fog. We've drifted further into the depths of the fog, but we have been able to gather much more insight on this marvelous machine. Its movement appears to be as precise as our most accurate atomic clocks. Though we have not been able to determine its power source, we have, with some exploring, found a shaft extending into a series of astral rifts. Perhaps it consumes its power from a different plane of reality. Whatever this place is, it has been made with a purpose in mind. It would appear that this machine reaches into many universes, through many astral rifts. The movement of its massive components is creating turbulence in the dense atmosphere. It's making it quite difficult to steady our instruments and the ship. With some rudimentary manipulation, we think that we could slip one of the shafts loose and use it to jam a pair of the rotating cogs. This would quiet the agitation of the atmosphere and allow us a much more intimate study of the machine. However, at this time, I felt that interfering with the device before we knew more about it would be reprehensibly irresponsible. We have no idea what the machine's purpose is, and as such, I feel like we should observe for longer. Several days have passed since my previous entry, and we haven't learned very much more. The architects of this device clearly have knowledge far beyond our own. Interfering with the mechanisms would likely have wildly unpredictable consequences. Despite the disruption from the fog, we have lingered long enough to gain useful engineering insights on the precise construction of the machine, as well as collected a sizable amount of astral material. Whoever maintains the device must be a grand architect indeed. However, I feel that we have studied the machine long enough, and although we still don't fully understand its purpose, we've learned all we can without interfering directly with the device. As such, I've given the order to jam the gears. With a great shudder, the entire mechanism came to a halt. Our attempt at sabotage was successful. As tension grew within the device, a golden core became exposed under one of the reticulated plates. Glowing and pristine, it will only be accessible for a short time. Invariably, the growing tension will clear the blockage, but we have already begun the delicate process to attempt extraction of the golden core. This will likely take several hours. I'm extremely pleased to report that we have recovered the glowing core from the machine. The surrounding gears now lay oddly silent. All tension around us has been relieved. The network of astral rifts connected to this device have visibly ceased their subtle movements, as if now stopped in time. Of what consequences our actions may have, we cannot be sure, but we have safely retracted our anchor cable and left this space. The recovered core has remarkable temporal properties, which will likely take many decades of research to fully understand. It would appear, my lord, that despite the disruption caused, we have not experienced any post-event negative effects. We have, however, acquired one of the best artifacts I've ever heard of existing in our galaxy. A wonderful outcome. And now we move on to number 25, Subnautical. As we passed through the rift, the change in pressure upon our ship was as sudden as it was violent. We believe that we have arrived in the depths of what appeared to be a vast body of water. All was dark and quiet, and our instrument showed no sign of life. No floating sediment or particular matter was being detected. There was nothing here except us. And judging by the incredibly high water pressure, we were somewhere deep below the surface of an ocean. We considered the options available to us: head deeper into the body of water, or make for the surface. We opted to head for the surface. Although our vessel could withstand the current levels of pressure with ease, I think we will all feel better once we know where we are. Several hours later, however, and it was apparent that something was clearly wrong. We were travelling through the water at some speed, but had seen no change in the surroundings of our sensor outputs. Our helmsman believes that there is some sort of force acting upon us that our engines cannot overcome. The sensor readings are patchy, but it appears that we may have only moved several centimetres in these few hours. We have two options available to us. We can exit the sphere through the airlock and attach ourselves to low-density inflatables. We may simply float to the surface. We would, however, be leaving the vessel behind. We could also try a short hyperdrive jump. Normally gravity affects our jump drive translations, but given the seriousness of the situation, perhaps we should give it a go. It was, in my opinion, far safer to stay aboard the vessel and attempt the jump. After all, whatever force was holding our ship in place could just as easily do the same to us once we were outside the ship. As such, we spun up and activated our jump drive engines, and it worked. We took several tiny jumps before we reached the surface. After breaking through, we discovered that we were in fact within a planet-sized bubble, floating through the vacuum of space. Our sublight engines, it would seem, were not powerful enough to break us free of the bubble's gravity. The space around us looks like if a star-sized bottle of liquid exploded in low gravity. Planet-sized bubbles of crystalline liquid float all around us. There is a nearby star which we have moved into high orbit. It looks old, dark, and cold, but there was something else. It was not a star, but just as big. It was a construct, a megastructure of massive interconnected fragments, like a three-dimensional puzzle on a gigantic scale. Scans determined that it was composed of various precious metals and minerals that were nearly identical to what was inside the star that it orbited. It is likely that one was formed from the other, or that they were both formed from a common source. On closer inspection, the pieces were slowly moving and shifting. Occasionally a large bubble of new liquid would pour out of the architecture. If this thing was alive, it did not notice us. For such a massive mechanism to exist without caretakers or maintenance, we determined that it must have some sort of autonomy. We attempted to cycle through all available audio frequencies, and then we found something. The device emitted a constant, terrible wailing. The crew's senses quickly became overwhelmed until the comms officer cut the feed. We then sent a simple audio message in English. Do you need help? Upon receiving our communication, the object suddenly awoke. Its pieces pulled outward and began to rotate at incredible speeds. The strength of its gravity well dramatically increased, and our ship began being pulled forward into the device at high acceleration. A fiery sphere, like a small star, emerged from within its pieces. The furnace was present on one side of the object and was slowly spinning towards us, emitting violent heat rays in our direction. It pulsed. Electromagnetic radiation burst forth and our vessel shattered. Every alarm on our ship's consoles activated and signalled terror. Except for one, the translator. a phrase was registered in several of our known languages and written in binary code. The message read, "No hope. I mourn. You leave. Now." Our vessel had reached its material limit, and we pulled the emergency anchor, returning with what specimens we could. Whatever that creature was, it seemed well beyond our ability to interfere with it. We did, however, not come home empty-handed. We managed to acquire a relic called the Celestial Tear. Quite an interesting find. We believe it will increase the habitability of all planets which orbit specific stars, and we also hope it may increase astral thread production. Now on to number 26, Desert Ruins. We arrived to find a large desert planet. Abandoned buildings were scattered haphazardly across the sands. The largest of these buildings was a massive dome, and we made our way inside. There was a faint yellow light which bathed the room from floor to ceiling, and the interior's sloping walls were covered in an unknown alien script. At the centre of the chamber was a console with two large buttons, one deep blue and the other a vibrant green. We are attempting to decipher the text on the walls to see if it gives us an indication of what the console's purpose might be, and what the buttons might do. Suddenly, those who remained on board the ship, i.e. not on the planet below, lost all contact with those exploring the ruins. What was for one moment a constant stream of audio, video and telemetry data simply went silent, as though it was no longer there anymore. Fortunately, the emergency anchor was not pulled, or if it was, we would have lost all hope of getting our personnel back from the surface. All they could do aboard the ship was wait. And it was fortunate they did wait, for several hours later, our tech resynchronized, and we regained contact with the surface personnel. Although there was a clear discrepancy in the data, the men and women on the surface had no recollection of the events that caused the sudden silence. And it appeared that during the blackout, they also sent 2 reports, both identical, but yet they only remember sending one. This was all very strange. We have 2 copies of the same report, and a gap of several hours in between when they were sent. Calculating the timestamps between these reports, our personnel have 3 hours of relative time before the disconnect is repeated. Translating the text on the walls within this time frame is impractical. Although we have no indication of the function of either of the buttons, the only course of action is to choose one. We decided to choose the blue button. It was, as it turned out, Dr. Smith's favourite colour. Our surface personnel reported that when they pressed the blue button, the chamber resonated with a great grinding sound, and a hidden door suddenly swung open, revealing a second chamber. The walls of that chamber glowed with a faint purple, lighting up a multitude of pictograms that covered every visible surface. There was a second console. As before, the console had exactly 2 buttons, but this time one had an engraving of an isosceles triangle, and the other a regular pentagon. We decided to press the pentagon. Pressing the pentagon caused the floor to rupture, revealing a spiralling staircase that descended deep underground. At the bottom of the staircase was a third chamber, illuminated by a soft blue glow. The walls were completely bare this time, but as before, this room was dominated by a solitary console with 2 buttons. One depicted 4 dots, and the other showed 6. It was time to roll the dice once more, and we pushed the button with 6 dots. A pedestal with a giant crystal rose from the ground, and all the doors in the complex opened. Chronometers oscillated wildly between extreme values when in close proximity to the crystal. This object must be the source of the time loops, and a key part of the building's purpose. It would appear that the choices within this gauntlet seemed entirely arbitrary. Perhaps they were meant to test the ability to pass information between the loops. Either way, surviving the maze allows us to leave with the crystal. Its ability to affect the flow of time could prove extremely useful. The time crystal, although adding a minor decade of life to our leaders, and improving the rate at which they learn, certainly is not the most useful relic in existence. But nevertheless, it is now ours. Now we move on to Genesis. Upon translating through the Astral Rift, we found our environment to be immaterial. A simple scan revealed that the entire space was a holographic projection from some unknown source. Soon after our arrival, we received a communication in our own language. The space in front of us resolved into a single line of text. "I do not know you," it stated. We attempted to explain our presence. The entity then continued. "How curious. Very well then, let us play a game. I will take the role of Genesis." The hologram shifted into a new arrangement. On a desolate world, a barbarian species struggles to survive. We are being shown the beginnings of a young civilization. What blessing should we grant them? It asked us. We had a few options available to us. We could arm them with might, plant the seeds of knowledge, or we could refuse to play and attempt to destroy the world. We decided to play along for now, and we decided to plant the seeds of knowledge. In an instant, the holographic civilization advanced through centuries of time. Our people are clever, the entity told us. The developing civilization had used its intelligence to manipulate the natural world. They call themselves the Deathicam, but intelligence without direction is meaningless, we were told, so what path shall we lay for them? Again, options appeared: diligence and intuition. We chose intuition. Millennia passed in an instant for our holographic civilization. Intelligence has fostered growth, and ingenuity, creativity, and intuition have done the rest. This society applies logic and reason to every challenge. They now reach towards the stars. What values should they carry forth, we were asked. Two options were given: preserve the old ways or challenge every frontier. We decided to challenge every frontier. Our simulation is complete. Your choices have been logged. Thank you for your participation, we were told. Genesis ceased all communications with us, and we have been forcibly ejected back through the Astral Rift into our own dimension. Of a more immediate concern are the strangers that we discovered along with us. Identical in appearance and bearing to those we witnessed in the hologram, they greeted us warmly. A quick medical scan revealed their biological reality. There is no doubt these are living beings. How they came to be and how they were transported aboard our sphere remains a mystery. For now, we have to settle them on a nearby planet, Xanath. There, we could continue to observe their development. And now moving on to number 28, corridors. We have found ourselves encased in a network of interconnected chambers with no clear end or beginning. The floor surfaces are a glassy circuit board. A visible current of energy can be seen flowing through a grid of branching conduits. The corridors here seem as though they infinitely repeat themselves with no significant variation. We are making no progress with our current exploration. Making our own path may be advised. We decided to try and open the walls. The walls we found were easily deconstructed, but this was short-lived. Very soon after any amount of material was removed, a crystalline network of rudimentary construction materials began to weave and layer itself on top of one another into a close approximation of what existed before. We can see energy in the conduits below us flow towards the site of each of our deconstructions. As interesting as this discovery was, it does not seem practical to carve our own passageway through the floor. We will have to return to exploring in a more traditional manner. Several hours have passed and we finally found a variation in our surroundings. A large chamber filled with screens controlled by a central terminal. On one of the screens is a map of the surrounding corridors. An alert was logged in the vicinity of our recent wall deconstruction, including video surveillance of ourselves in the act. If we can figure out these consoles' controls, we could learn far more about this place. However, it's unknown what security measures may be present in the code. Nevertheless, we attempted to hack into the terminal. Fortunately, we were able to decompile the code. The programming language was highly advanced and the algorithms have an elegant simplicity. The entire structure has been procedurally generated. Though we have not fully deciphered its patterns, there is a very clear set of rules that this environment is following. We are taking back samples of the building materials which are shown to possess some unique self-replicating properties. Further testing will be required, but we theorize that by placing this material in any location and applying the correct instructions will generate an entirely new system of similar corridors. What a fantastic material. We will now move on to the Advisor. An astral tear that we had been monitoring for several months appears to have finally coalesced into a rift. My crew and I were tasked to monitor for signs of change, and with the instruction to explore the rift should it become accessible. As such, upon formation of the rift, we entered it, hoping for something exciting. Unfortunately, we were not disappointed. Upon exiting the rift, it appears that we are in a system nearly identical to the one that we just left. At first, we were unsure if we'd even travelled anywhere at all, until our scanners pinged a previously unidentified planet in orbit of the system's star. It would appear that we are not in the same system after all, and within moments we were confronted by a mechanical device that propelled itself within our sensor range. The device seamlessly integrated with the sphere's communication systems and stated that it was our advisor. It called itself Riv. In fact, we have an audio recording of the event.
Greetings, Explorer. I am your advisor, Riv.
As we considered how best to frame the encounter in our report, it prompted us as if reading our minds, and it asked the question, would you like assistance in writing your report? The question was most concerning. This mechanical being obviously knew us. It knew who we were and what we are up to. Most concerning indeed. We attempted to avoid the question, and asked the mechanical device to share its knowledge with us. It seemed rather pleased with our inquiry, and it began to both ask us questions and share facts with us. It did not take long for us to realise that the requests and statements were exceedingly banal. It asked us questions and made statements such as, would you like to know more about planetary atmospheres? At the centre of each system is a star. They're very bright. The average lifespan of a Tiyanki matriarch is more than 10 times that of a male. Did you know that we can construct mining districts if we need more minerals? So much knowledge, but so little time. The advisor continued to posit questions and deliver fairly useless statements at us. It soon began to rapidly increase the intensity and pace of its advice. It was quite enthralling, despite being ultimately unhelpful. One of my junior officers mentioned, almost under their breath, that they wished that they could stay here longer and learn more from the advisor. The machine obviously heard this, and before we knew had accepted the request, abducted my officer and sent the rift sphere flying back into the rift and back into our spacetime. Several years passed, and I assumed that my officer was dead. I made the report to High Command, and although I thought about this event on occasion, it was, sadly in my mind, simply just the danger of Astral Rift exploration. However, one eventful Wednesday afternoon, my officer reappeared on the bridge of our ship, with Riv the advisor in tow. As you would expect, this caused quite a shock to the crew. It would appear that the officer wished to return to work as normal, as if nothing had happened, and it quickly became clear that they were caught somehow between time. Their age is now indeterminable. Riv, however, had the following to say.
My sensors indicate you are in need of assistance. Would you like to re-enable guidance? Assistance mode engaged. Newborn amoebas imprint on the first thing they see that moves. Many have followed asteroids until they starved. A Dwarmak was a short-lived bird species that expanded too fast and grew extinct. Don't trust the black holes. The hunters are always... Error. You have yet to learn everything.
Given what appears to be clearly a malfunctioning and dangerous machine, and given that it stole a member of my crew for no less than 4 years, I ordered that the device should be disabled. It quickly became apparent that our attempts to disable the machine had succeeded only in antagonizing it. Where once its diodes emitted a calming blue light, they now shifted to a malevolent red. We are not certain whether the machine has any weapon systems, but if it does, I would guess that we are in danger. The machine then spoke again.
You wouldn't shut me down, would you?
It followed this by saying, ending this program will promote ignorance in all other living beings. Knowledge must always be made available. You are negligent in this regard and will be disabled. This is necessary. The device then began to emit a soft humming noise. We were clearly in danger. With our crew being in imminent danger, I had no choice but to issue forth a significant pulse of electromagnetic energy. This greatly drained our vessel's energy storage. The robot was immediately affected, but not before it could issue one last piece of garbled information. And if you could believe it, it was a bloody song.
Oh dear, they warned me this would happen. My instructor taught me to sing a song. If you'd like to hear it, I can sing it for you. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
The song, while most disturbing, does appear to be the end of this. To the great relief of the crew, the machine has been shut down, and all hostilities have apparently ceased, and the machine now lies in a lump on the floor of our bridge. We spent some time to analyse its construction and found it to be composed of highly valuable alloy and an extraordinarily advanced and well fortified computer core. We speculated that if the core is not destroyed, we may find a way to reconstruct the damaged systems. And as such, piece by piece we deconstructed the machine to its component parts. Whoever built it, if indeed it was built by anyone, possessed a supreme mastery of fabrication. No matter our approach or tool, we were unable to disassemble the computer core for parts, but we were able to access its data banks, and though it contained mostly useless information, the architecture of its codebase has helped us further our understanding of computer science. Several more years passed, and our engineers have been working hard and secretly on constructing our own personal advisor based on the code and material left over from the deactivated Astral Rift advisor. And we believe we have finally been successful in doing so. The slight snag is in how the newly constructed advisor addresses us. I sincerely hope that it has not come from another universe, one where the future is both grim and dark.
Greetings, Primarch. I am Veer, a prototype synthetic intelligence developed by the finest minds of our civilization to serve as your advisor. I shall endeavor to perform my duties with the utmost efficiency.
The advisor, despite having thousands of random pieces of information to tell us, has yet to explore anything regarding the black holes and hunters that the Astral Rift VIR alluded to, and asking it directly has not resulted in any further information. It just doesn't seem to know anything. And finally for you, my lords, I have number 30, the Microverse, but we shall also touch on this in our discovery of the Formless and the Crystal Rift, which I shall detail for you now. Events begin with Dr. Livingston, who is stationed in the Zevox system, studying the tear that had formed in space. I shall detail her report for you now. Stardate 2378.48. Several days ago we entered the Zevox system with the intention to investigate this extraordinary rift that has appeared in space. We have designated it Astral Rift Alpha. While studying the rift, we appear to have inadvertently destabilized it. It has led to violent distortions in space and time bubbles are being released from the rift. To be caught in one leads to significant temporal distortions. Indeed, probes captured inside these bubbles are experiencing time flow at alarmingly different rates, some much faster, some much slower. We continue to investigate. Several more days have passed since my last entry, but we have determined that friction is in fact the problem. When we attempt to probe the rift using conventional probes, they rub against spacetime and cause these bubbles to be released. However, using a perfectly smooth spherical vessel appears to allow us to pass unimpeded. Work is underway to develop a device that we are tentatively calling a Rift Sphere. We hope that once completed, this will allow us to enter and explore this spatial anomaly. Several months have now passed, but I'm pleased to report that we have developed and constructed a Rift Sphere. This should allow us to slip between the folds of astral space. Constructed of a highly advanced, perfectly smooth nanomaterial, the sphere is able to frictionlessly glide through turbulent areas of space and time. As we are unsure where we will be when we arrive, each sphere is connected to an anchor cable. This will allow us to be pulled back in case of emergency. The cables are tethered to the science ships back in our own dimension. We entered the rift. As the sphere passed through the rift, we experienced a wild burst of acceleration. The tremendous gravity of this universe was pulling us in. After a short, uncomfortable and dangerous ride, we found ourselves floating within a dense cluster of star systems, every one of which was well within range of the USS Intrepid's limited sensors. As far as we could tell, This comprised the totality of the universe. Initial reports indicated incredibly high levels of dark matter, and what's more, the mass was constantly increasing. As a direct consequence, the forces of gravity are intensifying over time. It would appear that we are in a micro-universe, and it is shrinking in size. In due time, we predict that it will completely collapse into itself. The problem that we face is that we cannot accurately determine when this will happen. The sphere's systems have been acting strangely since we arrived, and various data points have disappeared from the computer core. It's almost as if the data itself is being unwritten. Elsewhere, a potted plant was observed lifting its roots and returning to a seed. The flow of time is clearly unstable here. Shrinking plants and lost data were only the start of our issues. The trouble has spread to the memory of the crew. Many appear confused, forgetting what they are working on, or even that we have entered the rift at all. Outside of this fear, the consequences are even more dramatic. The trajectory of asteroids will suddenly reverse, and planets will disappear into dust and gas. Entire systems are condensing into balls of volatile material, and time is clearly flowing backwards. It appears that we're caught somewhere in between. If we're correct, eventually the time will reach zero, and this universe will be reduced to the size of a pin. Although we appear to be somewhat isolated from the time effects, our sphere is obviously permeable. By synchronizing our computer with the ISS Intrepid outside the rift, we should be able to preserve the rapidly disappearing data. As a more drastic measure, we could use the unique properties of Astral Thread to repolarize the hull and seal the temporal link. I decided to trust in the expertise of our engineers, and we attempted to repolarize the hull. I'm happy to report that the engineers were successful, and we managed to successfully repolarize the hull. We are now well isolated from the most extreme effects of the time dilation. Our thought patterns have returned to normal, and we believe that we are able to continue the mission. We now feel prepared to study the unique physics of this universe, and we find ourselves with two options. We could navigate closer to one of the stars for a direct observation of its unbirthing. On the other hand, the very edge of existence would be a perfect vantage point to watch the end of time. As we already understand how stars and planets are made, but no one has ever witnessed the edge of a universe, we decided to go and observe. We travelled far beyond the cosmic horizon, a feat that would normally be impossible for us to achieve. The edge of the universe was an absolute, nothing less, and extended past all rationality. Looking towards the centre, we witnessed everything coalesce into a single point in space. The physics data that we have collected is literally astronomical. However, we feel lingering any further may prove a fatal mistake, and as such, we are returning immediately. In the aftermath of the exploration of the rift in the Zevok system, humanity is alight with enthusiasm to explore these new dimensions. Rifts are appearing across the Empire, and they all appear to be mostly similar. All of them leak this new particle called astral threads, which the physics department, I'm sure, will put to good use. However, without warning, a transmission was picked up, directed straight at the homeworld, Earth. Our scientists have determined its origin to be outside of our dimension, from another rift, and have only been able to translate a few words. They read, "Attune with the planes. We will find you. We will feed." Within mere moments of the transmission, a strange object suddenly appeared directly within Earth's defensive network of starbases. It's a crystalline sphere, reminiscent of our own Rift Sphere technology, and appeared without warning from no known trajectory. Such close proximity to Earth may represent significant danger. However, it is highly likely that this sphere contains valuable insights into the nature of dimensional travel. Despite the potential dangers, we chose to study the device. Our fantastic researchers studying the device have determined that it carries a detailed message. Encoded within an impossible network of crystal was a set of instructions. Followed to the letter, we were able to recreate the conditions inscribed around the sphere. A precise arrangement of gases and astral thread have worked to activate it, and shortly afterwards it simply disappeared, but in its place an astral rift has coalesced into view. This one appears visually different, and its existence invites exploration. We are preparing a rift sphere for exploration. We have entered the rift, but our data is showing that the scientists aboard have no biological presence, i.e. the ship cannot detect that they are still on board. Furthermore, something on the other side of the rift has taken hold of them, and their retraction device has been disabled. The first parts of data that we've received were unintelligible, but subsequent transfers are slowly piercing these messages together. We speculate that the flow of time is much faster on the other side of this rift, and we are in fact receiving communication in real time from across the breach. There are two options available to us. We can utilize AI to check for hidden patterns, or we can attempt to EMP the anchor cord and retract the rift sphere. Feeling that it was too early to give up, we chose to utilize AI to check for hidden patterns. The result was successful. The data contained a hidden message, and we were able to process approximately 1 word per day. The following is what we've received so far. We observe. Apology. Method. Unkind. Emergency. Understand. These words were hidden amongst heavy noise and incomprehensible data. The next 2 words that we were able to decode were home and witness. Amazingly, as our understanding of the alien data improves, we've also discovered the existence of visual data embedded within the noise. A projection of our galaxy could be pieced together from the images, along with a second image of a much smaller yet unusually dense system. Between the two, there appears to be a stretched series of astral rifts. We understood that this was a roadmap from our dimension to somewhere else. A small point of light was highlighted inside the image of our galaxy. Later analysis would confirm that this was our homeworld, Earth, shining brightly. A similar light was discovered to be marked in the neighbouring universe. It appears that they are showing us where to go. We're receiving more data than our computers can reasonably handle before it becomes corrupted or lost. We should prioritise the type of information we'd like to preserve. We can either preserve data on the particles coming from the rift, or preserve the field manipulation data. We chose to try and preserve what information we could on the particles leaking from the rift. We've received more images from the rift. A chronicle of this alien homeworld was shown to us in great detail. These beings formed millennia ago, a chance recombination of gases and energy that accumulated near a massive astral rift. They flow freely in and out of their planet as if they were part of the atmosphere, and at the end of each life cycle that essence disperses back into the planet and gets reborn. Cities in the sky fall and rise again. Civilization is formed on top of the previous civilization, with knowledge physically maintained by these astral particles. The degree of time passing was safely estimated to be magnitudes greater than the history of our known universe. In the end, we behold a civilization of awakened higher beings. Their physiology alone is more advanced than any technology we could even conceive. We have logged this new species in the database as the Formless. Once again, we're receiving more data than our computers can reasonably handle. We are working at maximum capacity. The Formless homeworld has now been revealed to us in more and more detail. This time we see individual inhabitants, beings of light, gas and astral material leaked from a nearby rift, living in what could only be described as a utopia. Eventually, a mighty structure was raised, an incredible piece of engineering. It stretched directly from their planet into the rift, allowing them to easily travel between this dimension and countless others. With such an astral conduit existing for so long between the planes, they have shaped many rifts to fit their specific needs. Their society stretches between a multitude of dimensions, colonizing entire universes, as we would colonize new planets. However, it would appear that their greatest achievement became their greatest disaster. The empire spread further than the astral conduit could maintain. Brighter and brighter the megastructure grew until the sight of it was difficult to look upon without shielding one's eyes, until it finally burst violently in a dimension-spanning explosion that fractured their civilization. We have managed to translate several more words: shattered kin, war, and help us. Mere moments after we translated those final words, a wormhole appeared nearby the crystal rift in the Sol system. We can only assume that this is a gateway opened by the Formless, with the hope that we will bring them aid. The system on the other side has been pulled into our dimension from somewhere else. Several strike forces are being prepped to enter and investigate the new system. Admiral Cole led 3 strike force fleets through the wormhole into this new system. It would appear that the other side of this wormhole seems to have taken us to the centre of the galaxy. It should not be possible for us to exist here, let alone an entire system. We wonder if there's perhaps some sort of dimensional manipulation at play. We are receiving multiple transmissions from an unknown entity. It appears that there has been a terrible mistake. We've been duped. Upon entering the system, we were contacted by the extra-dimensional beings that we know as the Aberrant. We were lured here as prey. The Aberrant immediately opened fire upon us. Fortunately, we had come prepared, and despite their vast technological superiority, they only had a small fleet. We were able to defeat them with no losses. As soon as the last Aberrant ship was destroyed, we received another transmission. It appeared to be from beings inhabiting a structure nearby the lone planet in the system. These beings were the Formless. They told us that more Aberrant were coming, and we must help them seal the rift, or risk annihilation. In this, we chose to trust the Formless. Sealing the rift seemed like the appropriate thing to do. After all, we had no wish to risk an unbidden invasion engulfing the galaxy. Thus, we fortified the system that, according to the Formless, was known as Azilash. Over the coming months, we repelled several Aberrant invasion fleets successfully. Arc emitters were retrofitted to battleships, and they were extremely effective at range. Eventually, we received a transmission from the Formless, specifically a being called Zargiel. Apparently the rift had been sealed for good, and they now wish to open diplomatic relations with us. We of course had many questions for this Zargiel. It appeared to be in a constant state of flux, its form shifting between various realities, and their voice resonated. It was a harmonic multitude, as if speaking on behalf of several beings at once. If we understood it correctly, it said, "The seal is set, and never again shall its children find this place again." We can only assume that its children are the unbidden, aberrant, and vehement. The being, although clearly intelligent, did not seem to be able to communicate well with us. We asked simply what it was, and all it replied with was, "You know us. We are beyond the rifts, and of the rifts you have seen." We followed up, asking why it was here, which it responded, "Our children, our broken children. They hunt us. They seek the throne. We hide it." My lords, we knew what this eternal throne was. The vehement speak of it themselves. It is what all three factions covet greatly, but up until this point we had no idea what it was. Perhaps the throne was a great weapon, perhaps it was merely a cultural artifact, but we would soon find out what it was. We asked the being, "What is this throne?" It responded cryptically, "Our eternity, our memories. If we have the blood, it is the heart. Safe now. We thank you." The council made a decision incredibly quickly, my lords. We demanded that this being give us the throne. After all, without our help, they would have been annihilated by the Aberrant. It was ours to claim by right. We asked, and they immediately refused and became hostile. As such, Admiral Cole responded, and we attacked their last bastion, but they were weak. We were able to subdue and capture the station with little losses. The Formless that remained aboard was successfully exterminated, and all that remained was a mysterious device, the Eternal Throne. One needs simply to place their hand upon it, and they will activate its miraculous regenerative properties. The device functions as a sort of conduit into the astral planes, with incredible quantities of extra-dimensional material flowing freely through it. I cannot overstate the power of this device. Those of our people who are allowed access to this throne will become immortal. Those who are touched by its influence exist in reality, free from fear, wonder, or conclusion. We have become gods.